The first thing I noticed was that Myron had put on my reading glasses. She sat at my kitchen table a little after midnight, wearing them low on her nose while she sorted my mail into 3 stacks. A grocery flyer lay open by her elbow. Bills were lined up beside the sugar bowl. A white envelope with my name on it had been slit neatly across the top. The canvas tote hanging from the back of her chair moved when she turned around. Dad. She snatched off the glasses. You scared me. I live here. I thought you were volunteering until 1. We finished early. Her hand settled over the opened envelope. Not casually. Not the way you rest your hand on something. The way you keep it from being taken. I looked at the tote again. Inside, beneath a coil of ribbon and one of her black event aprons, I could see the corner of another envelope. My name was written across it in Eli's blocky handwriting. My son had written to me. My daughter had put it in her bag. What are you doing? I asked. Marin looked at the stacks, then back at me, as if the answer should have been obvious. Helping? There are words that sound innocent until somebody uses them at midnight. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The refrigerator clicked on behind me. Somewhere in the wall, the old pipes made a sound like a man clearing his throat before delivering bad news. Marin smiled too quickly. You had mail all over the counter, she said. I figured I'd separate the bills from the junk before I went to bed. The junk goes in my bag now? She glanced behind her. What? The tote. Oh. She gave a short laugh. That's not Dad. There's ribbon in there. I was cleaning up from the Hensley event. With a letter from Eli? Her face changed. It was small, the change. Her mouth stayed in the same position, but the warmth left it. I stepped toward the table. She stood. Marin was 39 years old and 5'7", but when she wanted to stop me from doing something, she still had the same habit she'd had for years. She planted herself directly in the way and acted as if it were a coincidence. You're dripping, she said. I looked down. Rainwater had darkened the shoulders of my volunteer jacket. My shoes were wet from the driveway. I'll get a towel. I don't need a towel. You'll track it everywhere. Marin. She reached for the opened envelope. I put my hand on it first. Her fingers stayed there, touching mine across the paper. I could feel a faint tremor in them. That frightened me more than if she'd started yelling. Let go, I said. Can we just talk for a second? We can talk after you let go of my mail. Her eyes sharpened. You don't even know what it is. That sentence doesn't help you. She released the envelope and crossed her arms. She was barefoot, dressed in gray sweatpants and an old Ohio State sweatshirt she had taken from my closet sometime during the previous winter. Her dark hair was tied up with a pencil. There was blue paint on the side of her wrist from the garden panels she'd been finishing in my garage. She looked less like a criminal than anybody could possibly look. She looked like my tired daughter, working too late again in the house where I had told her she could stay as long as she needed. That made it worse. I lifted the envelope. The return address belonged to the Appalachian Folk School in North Carolina. The letter inside had been folded back into place, but not carefully enough. One corner was bent. At the top, above 3 short paragraphs, were the words, "We are pleased to offer you a place." For the previous 4 months, I had checked my email every morning like a teenager waiting to hear from a date. The folk school's website had said final notifications would be mailed in June, which I respected. A person should have to walk to the mailbox for certain kinds of news. You got in, Marin said softly. I can read. I know. I just meant, congratulations. You opened it. I thought it might be time sensitive. It has my name on it. I understand that. Do you? Her nostrils flared. She hated being spoken to as if she were foolish. She could tolerate criticism, occasionally. Confusion insulted her. I saw the logo, she said. You never told me you actually applied. You knew I was thinking about it. You mentioned a class. It's a restoration program for 6 weeks. There it was. Not, what is it? Not, when did you apply? 6 weeks. I looked at her, and she realized what she had revealed. Did you read the whole thing? I asked. She rubbed her forehead. Dad, come on. Did you? Yes. The kitchen clock ticked above the sink. It had belonged to my mother, and it ran 4 minutes fast because every time I tried to adjust it, the little plastic wheel on the back threatened to snap. For years, I had mentally subtracted 4 minutes whenever I looked at it. That night, for some reason, I believed it. Give me the bag, I said. Marin's arms dropped. You're being dramatic, maybe. Give it to me. It's my bag. My mail is inside it. You saw one envelope? One is enough. She pulled the tote off the chair and held it against her hip. Eli's letter came today. I was going to give it to you. You were going to give me a letter addressed to me. Yes. When? Tomorrow. Why not leave it with the rest? Because I was sorting. Into what categories? She stared at me. I pointed to the table. Bills, junk, things Maren decides I can have. That's unfair. It's accurate. No, it isn't. She set the tote on the counter but kept one hand on the strap. You've been distracted lately. You forgot the water bill last month. I paid it, after the late notice. The bill was under 3 boxes of your candle holders. That's not the point. It feels close to the point. Maren turned away, walked 2 steps, then came back. She did that when angry, moved as if she were leaving the conversation, only to remember the conversation belonged to her. I'm trying to keep this house running too, she said. I looked toward the dining room. 6 gold metal arches leaned against the far wall. Artificial eucalyptus covered half the table. A crate marked votives sat in the chair where I used to drink coffee and do the crossword. Beyond that, through the open door to the garage, I could see the corner of a plywood backdrop I had spent the previous Saturday repairing. Are you? I asked. Her cheeks reddened. That was when I knew I was in danger of doing what I always did. I would make one sharp remark, see that it hurt her, then spend the next hour comforting her for the wound I had inflicted while the original injury slipped quietly out the back door. I took off my wet jacket and hung it over the stool. Maren, give me everything addressed to me. I said I would. Now. She exhaled through her nose and reached into the tote. The first thing she handed me was Eli's envelope. My name and address filled the front in black ink. No return address because Eli assumed I knew where he lived, and because Eli had always disliked writing the same information twice. I turned it over, sealed. The second envelope was pale yellow, with Ruth Mercer in the upper left corner. Ruth had kept my last name after the divorce because, as she once told me, changing every account and identification card seemed like a great deal of clerical work to prove she no longer loved me. Her envelope was sealed, too. How long have you had these? They came this week. What day? I don't know. I held up Ruth's card. My birthday was 2 weeks ago. She's always late. She's early for Christmas. Late for everything else. Maren almost smiled. It arrived and disappeared so quickly I might have imagined it. This isn't funny, I said. I know. Do you? Would you stop asking me that? Then say something that makes sense. She pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes. I was going to put them back. Why take them? I didn't take them. You put them in a bag, to move them. From my table to where? Can you lower your voice? I wasn't raising it. That was another habit of hers. If I stayed calm while she became upset, she would accuse my calmness of being aggression in a better shirt. My voice is fine. Well, your tone isn't. My mail was in your bag, Maren. I'm not going to make this comfortable for you. She let her hands fall. For the first time since I had walked in, I saw something underneath her irritation. Not guilt exactly, fear perhaps, although I could not understand what she was afraid of. Her gaze shifted to the folk school letter in my hand. You can't just leave for 6 weeks, she said. The words came out quietly, like she had been trying not to say them. I haven't decided anything. You applied. That isn't the same thing. You applied without telling me. I don't report my plans to you. No, you just wait until everything is settled and then announce them like nobody else exists. I gave a short laugh, though nothing was funny. Everything in this house is arranged around you. That is not true. Your business is in my garage. Your inventory is in my dining room. I rebuilt a wooden wall at 11 o'clock last Tuesday because you promised it to somebody before checking whether the truck would hold it. You offered. You called me 6 times. Because I was stranded, you were in a Home Depot parking lot. In Dublin. Not the Irish one. She looked toward the ceiling, begging patience from a God who, in her version of events, had put unreasonable fathers on earth to test daughters. You said you wanted to help, she said. I did. And now you're using it against me. No. I'm trying to understand when help became permission to open my mail. It didn't. Then why did you do it? Her jaw worked. She picked up a credit card advertisement from the junk pile and folded it once, then again, pressing the crease with her thumbnail. I needed to know what was happening, she said. With what? With you. What's happening with me? You've been different. I waited. She seemed surprised I didn't fill in the silence for her. You go out more, she continued. You've been talking to Eli. Ruth sent you that birthday card. Then the folk school thing shows up. So you don't tell me anything. You live in my house. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have at 12:30 in the morning. You could have mentioned you were planning to disappear for a month and a half. I was waiting to hear whether I got in. And now you have. Her eyes moved to the letter again. I followed her gaze, then looked at the opened edge, clean and deliberate. This wasn't curiosity. She had been waiting for that envelope. A thought came to me that I didn't like. Was there another letter from them? Maren went still. I heard rain ticking against the kitchen window and the washing machine turning over in the basement. She had put in a load sometime before I came home. My detergent, probably. Her clothes. What do you mean? She asked. The folk school sends acknowledgments when they receive an application. There should have been something weeks ago. Maybe they emailed it. They said they mailed it. I don't remember every piece of junk that comes in. It wouldn't have looked like junk. She folded the credit card advertisement smaller and smaller until it was a hard white square between her fingers. Maren, I don't know. It was too careful to be true. I took the tote from the counter. She did not stop me this time. I emptied it onto the kitchen table. Ribbon spilled across the bills. 2 pens rolled toward the sugar bowl. There was a tape measure, a set of keys, 3 fabric samples, a handful of receipts, her apron, and a torn white envelope with the Appalachian Folk School logo in the corner. It had already been opened. The letter inside was gone. I picked up the torn envelope. The flap had been sliced with something sharper than a finger. Maren kept a little silver craft knife in her apron pocket for cutting ribbon. I looked at the apron on the table, then at her. What did the letter say? I told you, I don't know. You knew this envelope was coming. I knew you'd applied. You knew that before tonight? She folded her arms. You left the application on the printer. I filled it out by hand. You printed the information page. That was true. I remembered finding the page on the floor of my office with a pale shoe mark across the section about housing. Maren must have stepped on it while carrying something through. What did you do with the letter? It was just an acknowledgement. What did you do with it? I threw it away. The answer landed harder than I expected. It had not been an important letter, not in any practical sense. It confirmed that some forms had arrived at an office in North Carolina, but it belonged to a future I had barely permitted myself to imagine, and she had dropped it into the trash like a pizza coupon. Why? Because it didn't say anything. It said something to me. You already knew you applied. That isn't your decision. I know that. You keep saying you know things. She flinched, and I hated that part of me was keeping score. I was not a man who enjoyed making people flinch. I had spent most of my life sanding the corners off conversations before anyone could bump into them. Standing there, though, I felt every softened answer I had ever given Maren pressing against the back of my teeth. When did it come? I asked. A few weeks ago? How many? I don't remember. 2, 3, maybe 3? And you've been waiting for this one. I wasn't waiting. You saw the logo tonight, opened it, read all 3 paragraphs, and put it under your hand when I came in. I panicked. About what? She looked toward the doorway. The hall beyond her was dark except for the little nightlight near the baseboard. Maren had plugged it in after she tripped over one of her own display crates and blamed my house for having an unexpected hallway. I have the Caldwell wedding in August, she said. I stared at her. The installation is huge. It's at that converted warehouse in Franklin, the one with the terrible loading access. You helped me measure the ceiling. This is about a wedding backdrop? No, I'm giving you an example. Of what? Of why 6 weeks matters. To you, to both of us. You're going to be gone too. What if something happens here? You call somebody. I call you. That's not the same thing. It's been the same thing for 18 months. She said it like proof in her favor. I sat down at the table. I did not trust myself to remain standing without beginning to pace, and I didn't want to perform anger for her. I pushed aside the ribbon and laid the torn envelope next to the acceptance letter. When you moved in, I said, you told me 6 weeks. Her face closed. That's different? How? My marriage was falling apart, and I said, you could stay. You said as long as I needed. I meant it. Do you? Yes. That's why I need you to tell me what opening my mail has to do with your marriage. It doesn't. Then we're back to the Caldwell wedding. Can you stop making me sound ridiculous? I'm repeating your reasons. You're twisting them. She pulled out the chair across from me and sat. One of the gold arches in the dining room gave a faint metallic knock against another as the furnace came on. Maren lowered her voice. I'm finally getting momentum, she said. Real clients, not just people who want champagne work on a beer budget. If I get through this season, I can afford a proper storage space. Maybe a studio. I thought you understood that. I do. And the busiest part starts right when you'd leave. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? Yes. You promised to help me. I promised to help. I did not promise to stop having a life until your business was convenient. Her mouth parted. For a second, she looked genuinely shocked, as if I had spoken in another language. You make it sound like I'm holding you hostage. You hid my mail. 1 letter, 3. The card from Mom and Eli's thing had nothing to do with North Carolina. Then why were they in your bag? She reached for one of the fabric samples, ran her thumb over the velvet, and put it back. I was going to give them to you. That isn't an answer. They came at the same time, not Ruth's. I don't know, Dad. I was sorting things, and then they were in there. The lie was clumsy enough to be insulting. Maren had always been a capable liar when she had time to prepare. Under pressure, she stuffed words into empty spaces and hoped quantity would pass for structure. I gathered the 3 intact envelopes and stood. Where are you going? She asked. To read my mail. Can we finish talking? No. You don't get to just walk away. I turned at the hallway. It was such a Maren sentence. Direct, certain, and built on a rule that applied in only one direction. I do tonight. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. I did not lock it. I wished a moment later that I had, because then I had to spend the next minute wondering whether she would knock. She didn't. I sat on the edge of the bed with Eli's letter in my hand. The envelope had a little smear in the upper corner where the ink had caught beneath his palm. Eli was left-handed. In restaurants, he always chose the end of a booth so his elbow would not collide with anybody else's. The letter was 1 page. Dad, you sounded like you were talking yourself out of North Carolina before they've even answered, so here's my proposal in writing. If you get in, I'll drive down with you. No airport, no rental car, no excuse about your shoulder and luggage. I have vacation time I've been hoarding for no good reason. I'll stay a few days, then come back when the program ends. Afterward, if you can spare another week, I could use help with the porch. Help means tell me what I'm doing wrong, not do it for me. You should go. Eli beneath his name, he had added. This invitation expires when one of us dies, but waiting that long would be stupid. I read the last line twice. Eli and I had spoken 3 times since my birthday. The first call lasted 9 minutes. The second lasted 12. On the third, I told him about the folk school because the silence had stretched and I needed something neutral to put in it. He knew old buildings. He knew I had spent years volunteering on repairs around Columbus and pretending I did not care that the folk school's restoration program filled up months in advance. I had not asked him to come. I had not known I wanted him to. Ruth's card showed a cartoon dog sitting in front of a cake on fire. Inside, she had written, "The candles were discounted because of the water damage. Happy birthday. Call me sometime when neither of us is irritated." That was Ruth, a peace offering with an escape hatch. I set the letters on my nightstand and changed out of my damp clothes. In the bathroom, I brushed my teeth while staring at my own face in the mirror. I looked tired, but not confused. Distracted, maybe. Old enough to have gray hair, young enough to recognize my own mail. When I came back, a folded towel sat on the floor outside my bedroom door. I left it there. The next morning, I found Maren at the stove making eggs. She had showered, done her hair, and changed into jeans and a cream blouse. The kitchen table had been cleared. My mail sat in one straight stack beside my coffee cup. On top was the acceptance letter pressed flat beneath the sugar bowl. "Coffee's fresh," she said. I looked toward the dining room. The contents of her tote were gone. The torn envelope was gone too. "Where's the first envelope?" She turned the burner down. I put it in the trash. Get it out. Why? Because it's mine. It's torn. So, it's garbage. Then you won't mind getting it. Her shoulders rose and fell. She set down the spatula and opened the cabinet beneath the sink. The envelope lay near the top among coffee grounds, paper towels, and the eggshells she had just discarded. She lifted it between 2 fingers. "Happy?" she asked. "No." She placed it beside my cup and washed her hands. "I'm sorry I opened the letter," she said, still facing the sink. "I shouldn't have, or taken the others, or thrown the first one away." "Yes." I waited, but the apology ended there. She put eggs on 2 plates and brought them to the table. Mine had black pepper and no cheese. Hers had cheese and hot sauce. She remembered details. That was one of the difficulties with Marin. Her care was real. It simply arrived tangled around expectations so often that separating the two could feel ungrateful. She sat across from me. "I didn't sleep," she said. "Neither did I. I kept thinking about how it looked. You coming in and seeing me with everything spread out. That's not the part I'm concerned about." "I know. I phrased that badly." I drank my coffee. She picked at her eggs. "Are you going?" I haven't responded yet. The relief on her face appeared before she could hide it. "The deadline is Monday," I added. "Then we have a few days to discuss it." "No. I have a few days to decide." "What's the difference?" "The difference is, you don't get a vote." She set down her fork. "I live here. That doesn't give you a vote. It affects me. Many things affect us without requiring our permission. That sounds like something you practiced in the shower." It almost made me laugh. Marin saw it and smiled, hopeful. For one dangerous second, the kitchen felt normal. Then she said, "If you go, I'll need to reschedule the Caldwell installation." "No." Her smile disappeared. "I just mean I'll need to contact them today. I heard you. Don't reschedule it." "Dad, you're the only person who knows how the wall system goes together. You know, I've watched you. Then practice." "I don't have time to practice. That doesn't turn it into my responsibility." She leaned back as if I had pushed the table into her. "What is this?" she asked. "Are you punishing me now?" "No. It feels like punishment. I'm telling you what I should have told you a long time ago." She folded her napkin into a thin rectangle. "What?" I looked past her at the arches, the eucalyptus, the crate of votives, and the plywood wall filling the garage where my truck used to fit. "Your business has 60 days to move out of my house." She gave a quiet, disbelieving laugh. "You can't be serious." "I am." "Because of an envelope? Because you believed you had to control whether I received it?" Her eyes filled, but her voice became hard. "And if I can't find a space in 60 days, then on day 61, you'll have a business with nowhere to store its things." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stood, took both plates, and scraped our untouched eggs into the trash on top of the torn envelope. "Fine," she said. The word was calm. The plate cracked when she dropped it into the sink. The plate had belonged to a set Ruth and I bought at Lazarus the year Eli started college. Marin stared at the crack running from the rim to the center, as if I had broken it by making her drop it. "I'll replace that," she said. "You don't have to." I said I will. She took her purse from the hook by the back door. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I'm not being timed out of the house." I said your business inventory, not you. That distinction makes it so much kinder. "Marin," she yanked open the door. "I have a client meeting at 8:30 on Saturday. Some of us work weekends." The door shut hard enough to rattle my mother's clock. I stood in the kitchen listening to her van start. The engine turned over twice before catching. I had told her in February that the battery was getting weak. Then I had offered to replace it, which was generally how things worked between us. I identified the problem, she agreed it was a problem, and somehow the wrench ended up in my hand. Her van backed out of the driveway. One of the taillights was still out. I cleaned the plate from the sink and set it on the counter. The crack was clean. A little glue might hold it, though putting a repaired plate back into daily use was asking for eggs in your lap. The envelope from the folk school smelled faintly of coffee grounds. I wiped it with a damp cloth and left it to dry beside the toaster. The acceptance package included a schedule, a packing list, and a card I could return by mail. There was also a phone number and an email address for a woman named Beverly. The program began July 28th and ended September 7th. Participants would stay in simple cabins, share some meals, and work under 2 restoration carpenters on buildings that range from 70 to nearly 150 years old. One line warned that the work could involve ladders, uneven ground, and prolonged use of hand tools. I rolled my right shoulder experimentally. It clicked near the top. Marin had not invented the ache. 2 years earlier, I had strained the rotator cuff carrying a cast iron sink out of a church basement because the 25-year-old beside me said, "You got your end." And I was too proud to answer honestly. Physical therapy had helped. Pride remained stubborn. I poured another cup of coffee and read the schedule again. It would have been easy to call the whole thing unrealistic. I had a house to maintain, volunteer commitments, a shoulder that objected to rain before the weather service did. Marin's business, whether I liked admitting it or not, had been built partly around my availability. There were sensible reasons not to go. The trouble was that Marin had decided I should never get the chance to weigh them. My phone buzzed on the counter. I expected her name. Instead, Eli had sent a photograph of a porch post sagging away from a roof. His message read, "Motivational material." I took a picture of the acceptance letter and sent it back. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then the phone rang. "Congratulations," he said. "Thank you. You sound thrilled. It's early. It's almost 9. On a Saturday, that's early. I've been up since 6. You always did have poor judgment." He laughed once. It was a good sound, familiar enough to make me realize how little I had heard it lately. "So," he said, "you're going." "I haven't accepted yet." "Of course you haven't." "What does that mean?" "It means you got the letter sometime yesterday and have already developed 4 structural concerns about your own house that require attention before September." "I don't have structural concerns. Plumbing? No. Electrical? I'm hanging up. Did you get my letter?" I looked at the sealed envelope lying open beside the coffee cup. "I did." "Yesterday?" "Technically this morning." "How did it take you until this morning to open yesterday's mail?" I could have said I got home late. I could have said I had been tired. Both were true, just not complete. "Marin had it," I said. There was a pause. "What do you mean, had it?" "She was sorting the mail." "At midnight? How do you know it was midnight?" "Because you said technically this morning." This was one of the difficulties of speaking to Eli. He listened as if the specific words mattered. "She was trying to help," I said, and felt foolish as soon as I heard it. "Did she give it to you?" "I found it in her bag." The silence changed. "Dad." "It's handled." "What does handled mean?" "We discussed it. Did she open it?" "No." "She opened the folk school letter." Eli breathed out slowly. "And you're telling me this like she used the wrong postage. I'm not telling you anything like anything. Why was my letter in her bag? She said she was going to give it to me." "When?" "This morning." "Do you believe that?" I moved the broken plate aside and wiped the counter beneath it, though the counter was clean. "I believe she panicked," I said. "That wasn't my question. I don't know what I believe yet." "Okay." The word was so neutral that it irritated me. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." "You always say, okay, when you mean the opposite. I'm trying not to tell you what to do." "You've improved." That was almost funny. It was entirely funny. He let that sit for a moment. "Does she know what I wrote?" he asked. The envelope was sealed. Good. It came out with more force than the rest. I understood then that the letter had cost him something, not the paper or the stamp, the invitation, the possibility that I might say no again. "I'd like to take you up on the drive," I said, "if you go." "When I go?" He was quiet. "I'll check the vacation calendar," he said. After we hung up, I called the number on the acceptance letter. A recorded voice thanked me for contacting the school and explained that the office was closed until Monday. I listened through all 6 menu options anyway, as though one might be press 7 if your adult daughter has discarded previous correspondence. I left no message. By 10, the rain had stopped. I changed the taillight on Marin's van because the replacement bulb had been sitting on my workbench for 3 weeks, and because a man could establish boundaries without encouraging a rear-end collision. I regretted it as soon as I finished. Not because she did not need a taillight, because I had done it while she was gone, with the old bulb wrapped neatly in a paper towel and the receipt clipped to the new package. It was the sort of invisible completion that had made our arrangement feel natural. Problems vanished around her. She came home believing they had not required anybody's time. I considered putting the bad bulb back in. Instead, I wrote "replace left brake light" on a piece of masking tape and stuck it to her steering wheel. It looked petty, but at least it was visible. At 11:15, Ruth called. She did not begin with hello. "Are you throwing Marin out?" "No. Good morning to you too." "Good morning. Are you throwing our daughter out?" "Her business inventory." "What?" I told her the event supplies need to be out of the house in 60 days. "Why? Did she tell you about my mail?" "She said there was a misunderstanding." "Of course she did. What happened?" I gave Ruth the short version. She interrupted twice, once to ask whether the folk school letter had been opened and once to ask where Eli's letter had been. When I finished, she was quiet long enough that I checked the phone screen to make sure the call had not dropped. "That's bad," she said. "Yes, I mean actually bad. Not Daniel has arranged the cans by height bad. I don't arrange cans by height." You did when we were married. I arranged them by contents. That's somehow worse. Despite myself, I smiled. Then she said, "Did you ask her why?" Repeatedly. What did she say? The Caldwell wedding. Ruth made a sound halfway between a cough and a laugh. Poor Caldwell, she said. Imagine being the reason a family collapses and not even knowing it. She thinks I can't leave because she has an installation. She thinks you won't leave. That's different, is it? I sat at the table. Ruth had always had a way of asking questions that made you feel she had already read your answer in poor handwriting. I'm going, I said. You just told me you haven't accepted. I'm going to accept. Because you want to? Yes. Or because now refusing would feel like letting Maren win? I wanted it before last night. I know. I'm asking whether you still know that. I looked at the schedule. I do. Then go. Her answer came so simply that I resented the relief it gave me. Maren said you were being reckless, Ruth continued. She said the work would hurt your shoulder. My shoulder belongs to me, too. I told her that. Thank you. I also told her she was welcome to store exactly 0 gold arches in my condominium. You knew about the arches? She sent me pictures. Apparently they're whimsical. They're metal circles. Whimsy is expensive. I picked at a dried spot of glue on the table. Why did you send me a card? Because it was your birthday. 2 weeks late. I had to wait for the water damage. I'm serious. So am I. That dog card was $4 off. Ruth, she sighed. Eli called me after your birthday. What did he want? To ask if I thought you'd really apply to that school. What did you say? I said you'd fill everything out, buy the correct envelope, and then leave it under a magazine until the deadline passed. That is unfair. That is our marriage in one sentence. We were married 26 years. It should take at least 2. He sounded like he wanted you to go. He wrote me, I know. He asked for my address because he'd misplaced yours. He called me 3 times. Then apparently he found it. I let that pass. Maren had his letter in her bag, I said. Yes. What reason would she have to take Ruth's card too? Ruth did not answer immediately. I don't know, she said. It was too measured. You have a theory. I have experience with being dragged into the middle of things. I'm not dragging. You're holding the rope and asking why it's tight. Before I could respond, she added, Talk to Maren when both of you are less angry. And Daniel? What? Don't turn 60 days into a performance. If you want the inventory gone, help her understand what gone means. Don't keep changing the punishment because you enjoy finally being obeyed. I don't enjoy it. Good. Then you won't mind being careful. She hung up after making me promise to call Monday. Maren returned shortly after noon. She saw the masking tape on the steering wheel and came into the house holding it between 2 fingers. You fixed my light? It needed fixing. Thank you. You're welcome. She looked toward the table, where the folk school paperwork remained spread out. I talked to Mom, she said. So did I. She thinks I'm insane. She didn't use that word with me. She used it with me. Maren dropped the tape in the trash. Then she reached down, removed the torn envelope from beneath the eggshells, rinsed the coffee grounds off it, and set it carefully beside my acceptance card. I shouldn't have thrown that away, she said. No, I still think you're making a mistake. That may be. I'm not trying to control you. I looked at the wet envelope. She followed my eyes and swallowed. I don't want to fight all weekend, she said. Neither do I. Then what do we do? It was the first honest question she had asked me. I capped my pen and slid the acceptance card toward myself. I'm going to the folk school, I said. You're going to be angry, and for once neither of us is going to confuse your anger with an emergency. I signed my name while she watched. Maren watched the pen move across the card. You don't have to do it right this second. I've been thinking about it for 4 months. You said you hadn't decided. I decided. During our fight. Before it. The fight just made me say it out loud. She rubbed the blue paint on her wrist with her thumb. It had dried into the lines of her skin. I hope it's everything you think it is, she said. It sounded generous until she added, because you're giving up a lot to go. I'm aware. Are you? I placed the signed card inside the return envelope. Maren turned and walked toward the garage. A few seconds later, metal scraped concrete. Then came a dull crash. I closed my eyes. Another crash followed, louder. I stayed in my chair. Damn it, she said from the garage. I waited. A gold arch rolled into view through the dining room doorway, traveled in a slow circle, and fell flat on the floor. Marin appeared behind it, carrying 2 more sections against her shoulder. "What are you doing? Moving my business? All of it today? You gave me a deadline. 60 days. I heard you." She dragged the sections into the garage. I got up, stepped over the fallen arch, and followed her. The garage had once held my truck, a workbench, and a shelving unit with labeled coffee cans full of screws. Now the truck lived in the driveway. My bench was covered with fabric swatches and silk flowers. White foam boards leaned against the freezer. A stack of plastic tubs blocked the cabinet where I kept paint. Marin shoved an arch section toward the wall. It struck a tub marked "Table Runners." "Where are you taking it?" I asked. "Somewhere else." "Where?" "I haven't decided. Then moving it from the dining room to the garage isn't progress." She swung around. "Do you have a better idea?" "Yes. Find a storage unit. With climate control, wide doors, and 24-hour access." "I don't know. They cost more than my van payment." "Then find one without climate control." "Fabric mildews." "Wide doors? The arches won't fit through standard doors. Take them apart. That damages the finish." Every answer was immediate. She had investigated storage before. The realization irritated me, because it meant she had known the house was not a permanent solution, while living as if it were. "You've priced places," I said. "Last fall." "What happened?" "I couldn't afford them." "You bought 3 new arches. They paid for themselves in 2 events. Then they can pay rent." She gave me a look that suggested business was an advanced language I had embarrassed myself by attempting. "You don't understand overhead? I understand that my freezer is behind a fake hedge." The hedge stood 7 feet tall and had tiny white roses wired into it. "That's going to the Caldwell wedding." "I'm beginning to dislike the Caldwells. You've never met them. I like them better that way." A horn sounded in the driveway. Marin checked her phone. "That's Celia." She moved past me, suddenly self-conscious. She pulled down the hem of the borrowed sweatshirt and glanced at her reflection in the garage window. I had not seen Celia in almost 2 months. She and Marin communicated in bursts, long silences interrupted by sudden dinners, arguments, and hopeful mornings Marin refused to explain. I had learned not to ask whether they were getting back together. The question made Marin defensive and encouraged me to spend an afternoon analyzing a marriage that was not mine. Celia came in carrying 2 cardboard boxes with a garment rack balanced across the top. She was 41, lean, with close-cropped black hair, and red canvas shoes that Ruth once described as aggressively cheerful. She had worked in physical therapy for years and possessed the unnerving habit of noticing how people stood. "Morning," she said. "I come bearing things that have lived in my closet since the Reagan administration." "We weren't married during the Reagan administration," Marin said. "Time has behaved strangely." Celia set the boxes down and looked at me. "Happy late birthday. Thank you. Your card was late because Ruth spent 3 days deciding whether the burning dog was too dark. I was told there was water damage." "There was also water damage." Marin stared at her. "You helped her pick that?" I advised. "Your mother rejected my first 7 recommendations." "You 2 talk?" Celia's expression tightened. "Occasionally." "About me? Mostly about the burning dog." Marin picked up one of the boxes. "This is heavier than it looks. It's the brass candlesticks. I asked for the acrylic ones. You said brass. I texted acrylic. You texted, bring the tall ones. The acrylic ones are taller, only when extended." They looked at each other across the garment rack with the exhausted accuracy of 2 people who knew one another's arguments by weight. "I can get the acrylic ones later," Celia said. "No, it's fine. I'm already going back." I said it's fine. Celia nodded once. She had learned, apparently, that fine was not an invitation to continue. Her eyes moved to the folk school envelope on the kitchen table. "You got in?" Marin's mouth became a straight line. "I did," I said. "That's great. I'm going. Even better." "He'll be gone 6 weeks," Marin said. Celia looked from her to me. I assumed they told him that before he accepted. "I'm standing right here," I said. "Sorry." "He accepted this morning," Marin continued, "after giving me 60 days to get everything out." Celia glanced toward the garage. "Everything?" "My inventory." "Oh." That one syllable held enough opinion to fill the room. Marin heard it too. "Don't," she said. "I didn't say anything." "You said, oh." "I did." "You mean good." "I mean, that explains the arches in the dining room. You never complained about them before. They weren't in my dining room." Maren picked up the second box and carried it toward the garage. Celia watched her go. "I should help," she said. "She won't let you now." "I know." She waited until the sound of shifting tubs began, then lowered her voice. "What happened? It's between us." "That bad?" "I didn't say it was bad. You're standing like you're trying to make your right leg leave without the rest of you." I adjusted my feet. She opened my mail. Celia's eyebrows rose. "Maren did?" I nodded toward the envelope and threw away the first letter they sent. Why? She didn't want me to go. Celia looked at the garage. A candlestick clattered inside one of the boxes. Did she say that? Not exactly. Then don't tell her I know. I won't. And go. The firmness surprised me. You think so? Yes, she's having a difficult time. Celia gave me a tired smile. Daniel, Maren has been having a difficult time since approximately 10 minutes before I met her. That's unfair. It is. It's also true. She's trying to build something. I know. I designed her first logo. She said she did it herself. Of course she did. Celia's smile vanished before it could become cruel. She loves you, she said. She also knows that if she sounds distressed enough, everybody around her starts carrying furniture. From the garage, Maren called. I can hear you whispering. We're discussing Daniel's hip alignment, Celia called back. My hips are fine, I said. They tilt left. Maren appeared in the doorway. Are you staying? Celia looked at her. Do you want me to? The question was plain. Maren treated it like a trap. I have to load for the Jensen dinner. I can help. I've got Dad. Neither of them looked at me. Celia picked up her keys. All right, you don't have to leave. You just said you had 'em. That doesn't mean you have to leave. What does it mean? Maren's eyes flashed. Forget it. Celia stood still for one more second, then nodded to me and went out. Maren waited until the front door closed. You didn't need to tell her about the mail. She asked what happened. You could have said we had a disagreement. We did. About you opening my mail? She already thinks I'm unstable. She didn't use that word. Everyone is careful with their words around you. That's not my experience this weekend. She laughed without humor and went back into the garage. An hour later, I was helping her load the arches. I told myself it was because metal against skin could slice deeper than people expected. Then I told myself I was only lifting one end. Then she asked me to hold the center while she found the moving blankets, and I held it. When the van was packed, Maren handed me a ratchet strap. You do this tighter, she said. You can do it, I know. I'm asking you. The distinction was clever enough that I took the strap. Celia's sentence followed me as I pulled it tight. Everybody around her starts carrying furniture. Maren climbed into the driver's seat and noticed the masking tape was gone. The brake light works, she said. Yes. Thank you. You're welcome, she hesitated. Do you want to come to the setup? No, it's only a couple of hours. I have work at the Playhouse. You're volunteering. That still makes it work. She looked toward the acceptance envelope visible through the kitchen window. Right, she said. You have your own life. It should have sounded like recognition. Instead, it sounded like an accusation. On Monday morning, Beverly answered the folk school phone on the second ring. She had a soft Carolina accent and called me Mr. Mercer until I asked her to stop. We'd be delighted to have you, she said. Did you receive the earlier packet with the medical form and equipment list? No, I'm sorry. Our records show it was mailed June 3rd. That wasn't your fault. She emailed me copies while we were on the phone. I confirmed my place, declined the extra night of lodging, then changed my mind and accepted it when she explained the orientation breakfast started early. After the call, I found Maren in the garage, crouched in front of a disassembled shelving unit. You accepted? She said. Yes. She turned a bolt with a pair of pliers. There's a socket set in the second drawer. I know. You're rounding that bolt. I said I know. I went inside. At 6, I left for rehearsal at the Playhouse. At 6:10, Maren called because one of the shelf brackets was bending. At 6:12, she sent a photograph. At 6:15, she wrote, Never mind, I'll figure it out. I made it halfway down Broad Street before turning around. When I pulled into the driveway, she was sitting on the garage floor beside the collapsed shelf, her face in her hands. I turned off the engine and sat there, angry with her for calling and angrier with myself for coming back. Then I got out and reached for my tools. The shelf had been assembled backward. Maren had attached the cross braces to the front. then forced the side rails until one of the brackets bowed. I knelt beside it and loosened the bolts. I followed the instructions, she said. The instructions show the braces in back. The drawing is terrible. It has arrows. They're tiny. There are also words. You don't need to be mean. I'm not being mean. You're narrating my mistakes. You called me because of your mistakes. I did not call you. I sent a picture. After you called me, I said, never mind. After you called me. She went quiet. I removed the bent bracket and carried it to the workbench. With the vise and a rubber mallet, I could straighten it well enough for light use. Maren stood behind me, arms folded. You're missing rehearsal, she said. I'm aware. You could go. I set the bracket in the vise. I'm already here. That's not my fault. I stopped tightening the handle. Maren seemed to hear the sentence only after it was in the air. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? I mean, I told you I'd figure it out. You knew I'd turn around. No, I didn't. You sent a picture of a collapsed shelf and then told me, never mind. Because I was frustrated. Maren, I didn't make you come back. She was right, which made me angry in a cleaner, less useful way. I had turned the truck around. I had chosen to drive home. I had picked up the tools. She had built the situation, but I had walked into it with both eyes open and then wanted her to carry my resentment. I released the vise. No, I said. You didn't make me. I'm sorry you're missing rehearsal. I'm going to be late, not miss it. I straightened the bracket, reassembled the shelf, and showed her which bolts to tighten. When she reached for the socket wrench, I kept hold of it. I can finish, I said. Why? Because I'll do it faster. That's your choice. Yes. The words tasted bitter, but they were true. I arrived at the Playhouse 43 minutes late. The building had once been a neighborhood movie theater, then a furniture warehouse, then empty long enough for pigeons to develop a sense of ownership. A non-profit had restored the front lobby and auditorium. The backstage areas remained a collection of bad wiring, stubborn doors, and plumbing that reacted emotionally to cold weather. That night, we were assembling flats for a production opening in 3 weeks. By the time I entered the workshop, Howard Lane had taken my place at the saw. Howard was 72, wore hearing aids he regularly forgot to turn on, and believed every tool worked better if insulted. You're late, he said. I noticed. What? I pointed at his ear. He tapped the hearing aid and winced when it came alive. You're late. Dolores Kim, the stage manager, looked up from a sheet of measurements. Everything okay? Yes, family thing, something like that. She studied me for half a second, then handed me a pencil. We started the window units. Howard cut one too short and is pretending the drawing changed. The drawing changed, Howard said. You cut 36 instead of 38. Numbers are always changing. Normally the exchange would have made me laugh. Instead, I put on my safety glasses and worked without talking. At the end of the night, Dolores caught me near the side door. You don't have to explain, she said, but if you're going to be on call for somebody, don't volunteer for the first hour. I'm not on call. She glanced at the clock. Then whoever it is has excellent timing. There was no accusation in her voice. That was worse. She was simply adjusting around me. The playhouse did not collapse because I arrived late. Howard cut lumber. Dolores reassigned tasks. Everyone continued. I drove home thinking about how rarely Maren's emergencies received the chance to do the same. She had left a plate covered with foil in the refrigerator. Chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans with too much garlic. A note on top said, "Thank you. I'm sorry." She was asleep, or pretending to be. Light showed beneath her bedroom door, but she did not come out while I ate. In the morning, the repaired shelf stood loaded with tubs along the garage wall. The masking tape from the brake light had been stuck to its top edge. Replace left brake light, it said in my handwriting. Maren had added beneath it, saved civilization. I laughed before I could stop myself. She came into the garage carrying coffee. Was that a laugh? No. You laughed. I sneezed. With emotional warmth? Probably allergies. She handed me a mug. Thank you for coming back, she said. You're welcome. And I'm sorry I said it wasn't my fault. It wasn't entirely. No, but I knew what I was doing when I sent the picture. The admission surprised me. What were you doing? Hoping you'd come home. Why didn't you ask? Because you might say no. She looked down at her coffee. There it was, stated as plainly as weather. If you ask, I said, I get to answer. I know. If you create an emergency, you think the answer doesn't matter. I said I was sorry. I heard you. Then why are you still lecturing me? Because sorry is not the same as changed. Her expression cooled. And 60 days isn't punishment? It's a boundary. That's a word people use when they want punishment to sound healthy. She walked back into the house before I could answer. That afternoon, I was replacing a loose hinge on the pantry door when Celia arrived with the acrylic candlesticks. She carried 2 long boxes against her chest. Marin here, meeting with the Caldwells. I thought she'd gone. I don't track her. Celia raised an eyebrow. I'm trying not to track her, I amended. She set the boxes in the dining room. The acrylic candlesticks were clear, telescoping tubes with gold bases. To me, they looked like parts from an expensive plumbing system. She said these were taller, I said. When extended, I owe you an apology. For what? She was right. Celia smiled. Don't tell her. It'll upset the ecosystem. I offered coffee. She accepted, which told me she had not come only to deliver boxes. At the table, she rotated her mug between both hands. Marin said, "You're going to North Carolina no matter what." That's accurate. She also said you're clearing the house because you want a fresh start. I want my dining room. That's what I assumed. I looked toward the boxes. Why did you assume something different from what she said? Celia leaned back. Because Marin has spent a year telling me she can't come home yet because you need her. The hinge screw in my hand suddenly seemed very small. She said that? She said you were lonely after the divorce, that your friends were drifting away, that you weren't eating properly. I cook. I know. What else did she say? That you'd never ask her to stay because you'd feel guilty, so she had to make the choice herself. I stared at Celia. She held up one hand. Before you get angry, you did tell her she could stay as long as she needed. She told you that too? Repeatedly. She needs me more than I need her. That has been my impression. Then why didn't you say something? To whom? To Marin? Celia's face became tired. Daniel, I have said almost every available thing to Marin. I have used short sentences, long sentences, calm sentences, angry sentences, sentences beginning with "I feel," and one sentence that began with a word my therapist advised me not to repeat. Despite myself, I smiled. She says I don't support her business, Celia continued. What she means is I won't finance it or spend every weekend hauling greenery. She says I force her to choose between me and you. What she means is I asked her to spend 3 nights a week in the home we were paying for. She made it sound like you asked her to leave. I asked her to come back. The refrigerator hummed behind us. Marin said you wanted space, I said. I wanted her to stop moving out every time we argued. I set down the pantry hinge. Celia watched me carefully. Please don't confront her with this as something I told you in confidence. How else am I supposed to discuss it? You're not? She used me as a reason to stay away from you, and she used you because you were willing to be used. That's harsh. Yes. You think I should have thrown her out? I think you should stop trying to solve my marriage. I'm not. You offered to call me after our last fight, to clear things up. For whom? I had no answer that did not make me sound like a man carrying furniture. Celia stood. I love her, she said. I know you do too. But when she makes you responsible for her choices, you object for 10 minutes and then start looking for a screwdriver. She nodded toward the tool still in my hand. I put it on the table. After she left, I finished the pantry hinge because the door would not close without it. I needed the distinction to matter. Marin came home at 6 with fabric samples tucked beneath one arm and a paper bag of takeout in the other. Celia stopped by, I said. Her steps slowed. I know. She brought the candlesticks. I see that. Why did you tell her you were staying here? Because I needed you. Marin set the food on the table. Did she say that? Yes. She's twisting it. She said you told her I was lonely, losing friends, and not eating. You were lonely. That wasn't the question. You'd been divorced 10 years and still set the table for 2. The remark hit with embarrassing accuracy. That didn't mean I needed you to move in. You never asked me to leave. You said 6 weeks. You said as long as I needed. We stood on either side of the takeout bag, each holding a different promise from the same conversation. I thought I was helping you, she said. The words stopped us both. Marin looked away first. Her phone began to ring inside her purse. She checked the screen. It's the Caldwell coordinator. Answer it. She did, turning toward the garage. Yes, she said brightly. Everything is right on schedule. As she spoke, she pulled a printed calendar from her bag and laid it on the table. Several dates were highlighted in blue. My name appeared beside deliveries, pickups, builds, and installations I did not remember agreeing to. The folk school dates were blocked in red. Every week before them was full. I pulled the calendar toward me while Maren finished her call. She paced between the kitchen and dining room, nodding as if the Caldwell coordinator could see her. "Absolutely," she said. "We're doing a full mock installation next Friday. I'll send photographs by end of day." Next Friday had Mercer, shop written across it in blue marker. When she hung up, I tapped the square. "What is this?" "The mock installation." I understood that part. "You're helping me assemble it." "Did I agree to that?" "We talked about it." "When?" "Months ago." "What did I say?" "You said you'd help with the Caldwell wedding. That is not the same as every blue square on this calendar." She pulled out a chair and sat. "I can't remember your exact words. I can't remember the conversation. You were in the garage. I showed you the design. You show me designs every week. You said it looked ambitious. That sounds like me. And I said I'd need help. What did I say then?" She looked away. "I'm sure you said, okay." "You're sure? You always say, okay." There was no accusation in her voice, just a fact she had built a business around. I counted 11 squares with my name or initials, 2 pickups, 3 builds, the mock installation, a venue walkthrough, something called floral wall reinforcement. The Caldwell wedding occupied 3 consecutive days immediately before my departure for North Carolina. "You have me working Friday through Sunday," I said. "The wedding is Saturday." "What's Sunday?" "Breakdown." "What's Monday?" "You leave. I'm aware." "So there's no conflict. I might want to pack." "You pack in 20 minutes. I might want more than 20 minutes. For what?" "Standing in my own house without holding a gold arch." She closed her eyes. "Tell me which things you'll honor." The word honor was doing dishonest work. "I'll help assemble the main wall because I already started it," I said. "I'll drive it to the venue if it won't fit in your van. I will not do every pickup and installation between now and then." "Who will?" "You. I can't lift the wall alone. Hire somebody." "With what money?" "The money the wall paid for itself in 2 events. That was the arches. I'm getting educated." She rubbed both hands over her face. "I'm not asking you to give up your life," she said. "You opened my acceptance letter because you wanted me to give up 6 weeks of it." I apologized. "Then stop scheduling the rest." She took the calendar and crossed my name off 2 dates with fast, angry strokes. "Happy?" "No, but that's becoming familiar." She crossed off a 3rd. I reached for the marker. "Let me." "I can do it." "I know." The phrase landed between us with all its recent weight. She released the marker. I circled the commitments I would keep. We argued about 4 others. One turned out to be a florist pickup I had already promised to make because the wholesaler was near my dentist. Another existed only because Maren did not like driving downtown. That one disappeared. By the time we finished, 5 blue squares remained. Maren stared at the calendar. "This is going to hurt my business. It will change how you run it. You make that sound simple." "No, I think it's going to be difficult. For me, for both of us." She gave a tired laugh. "You'll be in a cabin." Later, I called Eli. He answered from outside. Wind moved across the phone, followed by a metallic scrape. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to determine which part of the porch is decorative and which part is preventing death. "Comforting. The railing is mostly optimism. Send me pictures in daylight." "I did." "You replied with a thumbs up." "That was a photograph of your dinner." "Oh. How do you confuse a porch with lasagna?" "I get a lot of messages. I heard him set something down." "Beverly emailed me the equipment list," I said. "You're on a first-name basis already?" She invited it. Scandalous. "I need boots with more ankle support. We can stop on the way. I prefer to break them in first." "You prefer to research boots for 6 weeks and wear the old ones. That is not inaccurate." He laughed. The conversation eased after that. We discussed the route, whether to drive in one day, and which tool cases would fit in his Subaru. Eli suggested I come to his place the following weekend so we could inspect the porch and sort what I should bring. I looked at the calendar. Saturday was blank. "I'll drive up Friday," I said. "You don't have to." "I know. Stay through Sunday? That's generally how weekends work. I'm asking because you have a history of discovering obligations." I started to defend myself, then looked toward the garage where Maren was measuring acrylic tubes. "I'll be there Friday," I said. Marin waited until I hung up. Going somewhere? To Eli's next weekend. Why? To see him. She nodded as though the concept required processing. You circled the Morgan build on Friday, the morning. The backdrop has to be finished. I'll finish my part by noon. You can't drive after dark. I have headlights. You hate night driving. I dislike it. I'm still capable. Fine. The week filled itself with ordinary things. I went to the Playhouse twice and arrived on time both nights. Marin met with storage companies and came home offended by each of them. One unit had a narrow freight elevator. Another required a 12-month lease. A third had concrete floors, which she described as if the owner had personally invented concrete to damage table linens. She left brochures on the kitchen table with monthly prices circled. I did not offer to pay. On Thursday evening, she brought home the Morgan backdrop. It was a freestanding set of 3 hinged wooden panels, each 8 feet tall, painted to resemble old garden doors. I had reinforced the bases the previous spring, after one panel tipped during an outdoor reception. Marin and I had agreed that she would replace the hinges before using it again. She had not. One hinge had torn loose in transit. The screws had ripped through the edge of the center panel, splintering the wood. Marin stood behind the van with her hand over her mouth. The build is tomorrow, she said. I examined the damage. This needs more than new screws. I can see that. You'll have to cut out the damaged section, glue in a patch, then re-drill. How long? The glue should sit overnight. I have to leave at 8. Then you should have checked it sooner. I did check it. When? Last month. The hinge didn't do this today. Look at the rust. Her face tightened. Can you fix it? I should have said no. Instead I said, I can show you. We worked until almost midnight. I cut the damaged wood away because the router could take a finger faster than an apology could put one back. Marin fitted the patch and clamped it. The first one sat crooked. She cursed, pulled it free, and started again. At 11:30, she received a text from her floral supplier. The silk wisteria is the wrong color, she said. The wood doesn't care. She sent lavender. Morgan wants white. Paint it. You can't paint silk flowers. You paint everything else. She stared at the phone. I have to drive to Cincinnati in the morning. You have a build at 8. I know. Send an assistant. Paige has another job. Hire someone. By morning, I kept sanding. She called 4 people. 1 did not answer. 2 were unavailable. The 4th agreed to make the pickup for an amount that caused Marin to close her eyes before accepting. There, I said. You solved it. I spent half the profit. You paid what the help was worth. That's easy to say when it isn't your money. I looked at the router, clamps, lumber, and half-empty bottle of glue from my cabinet. No, I said, it isn't. She heard me. Neither of us continued. The next morning, I had planned to finish the brace, load my truck, and leave for Eli's by 1. At 10, Marin discovered the repaired panel no longer folded flat. The patch was a fraction too thick. At 11:15, I planned it down. At noon, one of the bases cracked when she tested the panel. At 1, her rented van arrived 2 hours late. At 1:30, the driver refused to load the backdrop because it was not wrapped. I have blankets, I said. They require plastic wrap, Marin said. Why? Company policy. You booked them. They've never required it before. At 2:10, we found industrial wrap at a packing store. At 3, the panels were finally loaded. Marin climbed into the passenger seat. I can go from here, she said. You're sure? Yes. I checked my phone. Eli had texted at 1, then again at 2:30. Still on track? I typed, leaving now. My truck was already packed. The drive should have taken a little over 3 hours. Friday traffic stretched it past 4. Rain began north of Delaware, heavy enough that the highway disappeared beneath silver spray. By the time I reached an exit with a gas station, my hands ached from gripping the wheel. Eli called, Where are you? About 2 hours out. You said you were leaving at 1. There was a problem with Marin's backdrop. He was silent. It was real damage, I said. I didn't ask. She had a build. You don't have to explain. I'm not explaining. I'm telling you why I'm late. You always have a reason. A truck passed the gas station, throwing water across the pavement. I'm still coming, I said. It'll be after 9. I can handle that. I have a 6:30 appointment tomorrow. You didn't mention that. Because you said you'd be here for dinner. I'll come in the morning. Another pause. Don't, he said. Eli, I don't want 6 hours of driving for an afternoon where you spend the whole time checking whether Marin needs something. I won't. You checked your phone 4 times during our last 12-minute call. That's an exaggeration. It isn't. I made a commitment to her before we planned this weekend, and you made one to me after. His voice remained level. That made every word easier to hear. I'm not competing with her emergencies anymore, Dad. It wasn't an emergency. Then why aren't you here? I looked through the windshield at the rain. He waited, but I had no answer that could survive being said aloud. Go home, he said. We'll deal with the trip later. The call ended. I sat under the gas station canopy until the rain softened. Maren texted a photograph of the finished backdrop glowing beneath white flowers. It looks amazing, she wrote. Couldn't have done it without you. I stared at the message, then turned the truck around. The rain followed me south for 40 miles. I stopped once at a rest area and bought coffee from a machine that produced something warm and brown with no other identifiable qualities. I drank half of it while standing beneath fluorescent lights, watching water slide down the windows. My phone remained face up on the table. Maren sent another message. Are you there yet? I turned the phone over. When I reached home, her van was gone. The kitchen light had been left on, and the house had that hollow feeling it got when I entered expecting someone. My overnight bag stayed in the truck. I took Eli's letter from the glove compartment, where I had placed it before leaving, and carried it inside. The dining room looked almost normal without the Morgan backdrop. Almost. There were still arches, flowers, boxes, and a coil of electrical cord draped over one chair. But I could see part of the table. I sat in that newly visible space and read Eli's letter again. This invitation expires when one of us dies, but waiting that long would be stupid. I called him. The call went to voicemail. I'm home, I said after the beep. You were right. Not about everything, probably because that would be unbearable, but about this. I said I would come, and I treated the promise like it mattered only after everything else had been taken care of. There is always something else to take care of. I stopped. Voicemails encourage speeches. Eli disliked speeches almost as much as he disliked vague apologies. I'm sorry, I said. You don't need to call tonight. I hung up. Maren came home at 12:40, carrying a white flower garland over one shoulder. She stopped when she saw me at the table. What happened? Nothing. Why are you here? Eli told me not to come. Her expression sharpened. What? I was going to arrive after 9. He had an appointment in the morning. So he made you drive back in that weather? He didn't make me. That's ridiculous. I was 4 hours late. You were helping me. I was supposed to be visiting him. You said you had time. I thought I did. You did. The rental company was late. That wasn't your fault. The familiar logic appeared so quickly that I could almost admire it. Every decision dissolved into circumstance. No one had chosen anything. Maren, why was Eli's letter in your bag? She shifted the garland to her other shoulder. We already talked about this. No, you avoided it. I said I was sorting. Why his letter? I don't know. Then make something up. You're better at that when you've had time. Her face changed. That's cruel. It is. I did not apologize. She laid the garland on top of a box and sat across from me. You want me to say I was hiding it? Were you? I wasn't going to throw it out. That isn't what I asked. I recognized his handwriting. And I knew it was probably about North Carolina. How? Because you'd started talking to him again. And then the folk school letter came. The first one. Yes. So you took his letter. I was going to give it to you. When? I don't know. After the Caldwell wedding, maybe. I stared at her. That's 6 weeks from now. I know how long it is. You were going to hold a letter from my son for 6 weeks. I hadn't decided. You decided I couldn't have it that night. I needed time. For what? To get through the summer. Her eyes glistened. She rubbed at one with the heel of her hand, angry at the tear more than anything I had said. You don't understand what he does, she said. What does Eli do? He gets you excited about something, then he stands back and judges everyone who might need you here. He invited me to visit. He wants you on his side. Against whom? She looked at me as if the answer were too obvious to say. You, I said. No. Then who? He has always blamed me. For what? For taking up too much space, too much time, too much attention. He acts like I stole something from him just by having problems. You did not steal anything. Then why are you letting him punish you for helping me? Because he wasn't punishing me. He was refusing to wait again. She laughed. That is exactly how Eli punishes people. He withdraws and calls it dignity. There was enough truth in it to hurt. Eli did withdraw. He disappeared from conversations rather than raise his voice. He could turn silence into a locked door and then insist no one had tried the handle. I had resented him for it while making almost no effort to knock. You and your brother are allowed to be difficult in different ways, I said. He doesn't need anything from you. He needed me to arrive for dinner. That's not a need. It was to him. She shook her head. You're choosing him because he makes it easy. He lives 3 hours away. He asks you for one porch, and suddenly he's the good child. This isn't a contest. It became one the minute he told you not to come. He didn't mention you. He didn't have to. I looked at the flower garland between us. Dozens of white silk blossoms had been wired by hand to a plastic vine. Up close, each flower was obviously artificial. From a few feet away, the whole thing looked alive. I canceled on him last year, I said. Do you remember? When? The weekend I rebuilt your arch. You didn't cancel. You rescheduled. We never rescheduled. He could have come here. I was supposed to go there. You offered to fix the arch. You called me 6 times. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I thought I was helping, I said. That is true. It is also the excuse I use every time I decide my promise to him is optional. So, this is my fault. No, it sounds like my fault. It is my fault. That's what you aren't hearing. She pushed back from the table. Then why are you interrogating me? Because my fault does not erase yours. Maren stood and began gathering the garland. It's almost 1 a.m. Yes, I have breakdown at 10. I know, I'm going to bed. Okay. She stopped at the hallway. I didn't throw out Eli's letter. No. You only delayed deciding whether I deserved to read it. Her shoulders tightened. She walked away. I was awake when my phone rang at 7:30. For one hopeful second, I thought it might be Eli. It was Maren. I answered from bed. What happened? The venue changed the pickup window. When? 8:30. You told me 10. They just called. I checked the clock. Then you should leave. I need help with the panels. No. Silence. What? I'm not coming. Dad, they're 8 feet tall. Paige can help. She's not available until 10. Call the person you hired for Cincinnati. Renee is at church. Call someone else. On Sunday morning? Yes. This is because of Eli. This is because I told you I wasn't doing the Morgan breakdown. You didn't say that. It wasn't on the calendar. I thought that was because we hadn't confirmed the time. You thought I would come. You always come. The words were out before she could soften them. I sat up. Not today. If I'm late, they'll charge me. Then pay the charge. It's $300. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She hung up. I got dressed and made coffee. At 8:10, I heard her van start. At 9, she texted that she had found 2 workers through a local event group. They wanted cash and charged more than she considered reasonable. I did not respond. At 11:30, the van pulled into the driveway. Maren and 2 women unloaded the panels. One wore bright purple leggings and gave instructions with military precision. The other laughed every time something nearly fell, which happened often. I watched from the kitchen window until I caught myself watching. Then I went to the basement and reorganized a drawer that did not require organizing. The phone rang at noon. Ruth said, "Did she survive? Who? Don't be irritating. She hired help." Good. She's angry. Also good. I don't enjoy this. I know. Do you? Yes, Daniel. You're not mysterious. You confuse discomfort with wrongdoing. I sat on the basement steps. Eli sent me home. Ruth became quiet. I told her what happened. Unlike Maren, she did not immediately assign blame. Unlike me, she did not begin sanding the facts until no edge remained. You chose Maren, she said. I chose to finish a repair. Same result. I apologized. To whom? Eli. Good. He hasn't called back. He might not. I rubbed sawdust between my fingers. When we divorced, Ruth said, you started doing everything for Maren. She needed help. She needed an audience. I was too angry to be one, so I sent her to you. You didn't send her. I told her you were better at practical things. What I meant was I didn't want to listen to another 3-hour explanation about why her boss had misunderstood her. That was years ago. And then you found a loose cabinet hinge, fixed it, and felt loved. That's a cheap description. Yes. She sighed. I benefited too. As long as you were rescuing Maren, I didn't have to be the hard parent. Eli didn't ask to be rescued, so we called him independent and left him alone. He didn't want us interfering. There's a great deal of space between interference and showing up for dinner. I leaned against the wall. What do I do? Stop asking women how to repair your relationship with your son. You're a woman. Thank you for noticing. I know what you meant. Call him again tomorrow. If he doesn't answer, call next week. Don't send one apology and turn his silence into permission to give up. A knock sounded at the basement door. Maren stood at the top of the stairs, dirty and exhausted. Mom, she said. I covered the phone too late. Ruth had heard. Tell her I'm glad she survived, she said, and disconnected. Maren came down 3 steps. The workers scratched the left panel, she said. I'm sorry. It needs repainting. I waited. She waited too. Neither of us moved toward the garage. Finally, she nodded once. I'll do it tomorrow, she said. She turned to leave. Maren, what? You charge $300 because the venue changed the pickup time? $250. Was the event still profitable? Her suspicion appeared immediately. Barely, but it was. Yes. I nodded. She studied me, then sat on the step above mine. I was afraid they'd drop it, she said. Did they? Almost, repeatedly. And we figured it out. The sentence seemed to surprise her. My phone vibrated in my hand. Eli had sent a message. I read it twice before answering. July 27th, he had written. I'll pick you up at 8. Be ready, I typed. I will. Then I turned the phone so Maren could see. Her eyes moved across the screen. He's still driving you, she said. Yes. She handed the phone back. For a moment, I thought she might argue. Instead, she looked toward the garage and said, Then I guess I'd better stop putting your name on the calendar. It was not surrender. Maren climbed the basement stairs, found the blue marker, and crossed my name off the remaining calendar squares with such force the tip squeaked. On 2 of them, she drew an X. On 1, she blacked my name out until the paper began to soften. Then she wrote hired help across the space. That seems sensible, I said. You don't have to supervise. I wasn't. You were making that face. What face? The one where your lips disappear. My lips are still present, not emotionally. She capped the marker and left it on the table. The next morning, she pinned the calendar to the garage wall instead of leaving it in the kitchen. That was a small improvement. So was the fact that she did not ask me to repaint the Morgan panel. She did it herself, though she used the wrong roller and left a texture in the finish. I saw it from the doorway and nearly said something. Then I remembered that the panel belonged to her, the mistake belonged to her, and the world contained worse tragedies than stippled plywood. The next time it went out, she aimed the textured side toward a hedge. Problems did not always need to vanish. Sometimes they only needed to face the shrubbery. A few days later, I found a damp cardboard box on the front porch. It had rained overnight. The box contained the new work boots I had ordered for North Carolina. Maren came into the kitchen while I was laying the boots on newspaper. Those are nice, she said. They're wet. I can see that. You came in after the rain started? Yes. Did you see the box? Yes. I waited. She opened the refrigerator and took out a bottle of water. Why didn't you bring it inside? It had your name on it. It's a package. Packages are mail. I didn't say you could never touch anything delivered to the house. You said everything addressed to you. I said, don't open or hide my mail. You also made me dig a torn envelope out of the trash, because you had thrown it away. She twisted the cap off the bottle. I didn't want to make another mistake. The sentence sounded sarcastic, but her eyes did not. I looked at the wet cardboard. All right, I said. If a package is on the porch, you can bring it inside. Should I leave it by the door or put it on the table? Either. And envelopes, you can put them on the table. But I shouldn't sort them. No. What if one looks like junk? Then it can remain my junk. She nodded. The rules were absurd when spoken aloud. They were also necessary. She took an old towel from the laundry room and helped dry the boots. We did not discuss why she had watched rain fall on a cardboard box rather than risk being accused again. The 60-day deadline approached in the background of every conversation. Storage brochures multiplied on the counter. Maren toured 5 units and rejected 4. The 5th had a loading dock, climate control, and a monthly price that made her sit in the van for 20 minutes after the tour. She asked Celia to look at a shared workspace in Grandview. Celia agreed, which Maren interpreted as romantic progress. Celia interpreted it as looking at a building. They returned to my house arguing. It's a 3-month commitment, Maren said as they entered. You heard the manager. I heard 6 months, Celia said. It becomes month to month after 3. After 6. That isn't what she said. It's what the lease says. The lease is boilerplate. The lease is the lease. Marin dropped a folder on the dining table. You always do this. Read. Find the worst possible interpretation. I am interpreting the number 6 as 6. I was at the sink washing blueberries. I kept my back to them. Dad, Marin said. What did she say? I wasn't there. I mean, what does this say? The folder appeared beside the sink. I did not pick it up. It says, whatever the two of you just read. Celia gave a short laugh. Marin frowned at her. What? Nothing? No, say it. He's staying out of it. I asked him about a lease. You asked him to decide which of us is right. I asked him to read. You can read. I am aware of that. I rinsed the last blueberry and turned off the water. You should ask the manager tomorrow, I said. Marin stared at me as if I had suggested resolving a theological dispute by calling customer service. Celia closed the folder. I'll go with you, she said. We'll ask. You don't have to. I know. The echo of my own conversations with Marin made all 3 of us quiet. Celia placed the folder back on the table. I should go. Marin's face tightened. You just got here? We saw the space. I thought we could have dinner. You didn't say that. I bought enough. You always buy enough. That was true. Marin cooked as if every meal might attract 6 unexpected guests. Celia glanced at me, then away. Do you want me to stay for dinner? She asked. Marin's answer came too slowly. I don't want you to stay because you feel guilty. That wasn't the question. You know I want you here. Then say yes. Yes. Celia took off her jacket. The small success made Marin radiant. She opened wine, put pasta water on the stove, and talked too much. By the time we sat down, she had described the workspace, the Morgan event, and an argument with a florist in enough detail to make the rest of us feel we had attended all 3. Celia listened. She asked questions. Her affection was visible in the way she pushed the bowl of grated cheese toward Marin before Marin reached for it. It was equally visible when she said, I'm still not ready to come home. Marin's fork stopped. I didn't ask you to. I know. Then why say it? Because you're looking at me like this dinner means something has been decided. It means we're having dinner. It can mean that. You agreed to counseling. I agreed to make an appointment. Same thing. No, it isn't. The air in the room changed. I reached for my water. Every instinct told me to say something useful. Marin was trying. Celia was protecting herself. Both needed reassurance. I had given variations of that speech before. Marin, I said. Celia is. Celia turned to me. No. The word was calm. I stopped. I'm sorry, she said. But no. You don't get to explain me to her. I was only going to say, I know. That's the problem. Marin's eyes flashed. Don't talk to him like that. I'm talking to both of you like that. This is his house. And our marriage. I set down my water. You're right, I said. Celia nodded. Marin looked betrayed. For the rest of dinner, we discussed the pasta, the weather, and whether Howard at the Playhouse had actually measured a door wrong or merely disagreed with the door. When Celia left, she kissed Marin on the cheek. Marin closed the front door and leaned against it. You embarrassed me, she said. I stopped talking. Exactly. I don't know how to answer that. You could have supported me. Against your wife? Not against her. That's what it felt like. You always take her side now. I have taken your side so often I helped build the wall between you. She stared at me. Did she tell you to say that? No, Mom? No, Eli? I am capable of forming a sentence without committee approval. She walked to the kitchen and began wrapping leftover pasta with enough plastic film to protect it from radiation. The work boots dried. I wore them on morning walks, 2 miles at first, then 4. My shoulder complained when I carried a loaded pack, so I called the physical therapist I had seen after the church sink incident. She gave me exercises and told me to stop lifting things overhead merely to prove I could. Does that include adulthood? I asked. It especially includes adulthood. Eli and I began exchanging short messages about the trip. He sent a photograph of the Subaru's cargo area, with measurements written across it. I replied with a list of tools. He removed half. You are attending a program, he wrote, not invading Normandy. I deleted 3 more items. Marin watched the preparations without openly criticizing them. She brought packages inside. She left envelopes untouched on the table. Once, I saw her standing over a letter from the folk school, looking down at the logo. She walked away before I entered the room. Inside was a welcome note from Beverly and the final cabin assignment. I left it on the table all afternoon. Not as a test, I told myself. Still, each time I passed, I checked whether it remained. It did. One evening, I found an invoice beneath the Caldwell design folder. The event date at the top was July 26th. I read it again. Marin had originally told me the wedding was in August. The calendar showed 3 days of work before my departure, but I had assumed those were advanced construction and delivery dates. The wedding itself was Sunday night. She entered carrying grocery bags and saw the invoice in my hand. You said August. The venue changed. When? A month ago. Before or after I got the acceptance letter. Her silence answered. You knew the wedding was the night before I left. I knew it might be. You put me on setup, transport, and breakdown. You agreed to help with the Caldwell wedding. When it was in August, I couldn't have helped. I'd be gone. You agreed before you applied. So, your plan was what? I would come home from North Carolina for it? No? Then explain. She put the bags on the counter. The original venue lost its permit for August events. The Caldwells could take July 26th or wait until November. They chose July. I didn't choose it, but you accepted the new date. They're my biggest client. You accepted it knowing I leave the next morning. I thought we would work something out. You thought I wouldn't go. I thought 6 weeks away might look less important once you understood what was at stake. I set down the invoice. You knew when you opened the letter. Yes, that single honest word had more force than her earlier denials. And when you threw away the first one, the date change had just happened. So you weren't protecting me from ladders or my shoulder. I was protecting my business. From a commitment you made after I applied, they changed the date, and you still said yes. What was I supposed to do? Lose the client? You could have planned without me. I am planning without you. You wrote my name all over the calendar, and then I crossed it off. After I caught you, the grocery bag sagged between us. A carton of eggs lay on its side near the top. Marin pressed both palms against the counter. The Caldwell wedding could lead to 3 more, she said. The coordinator works with corporate events. The family owns 2 restaurants. People like that recommend each other. I hope it goes well. I need it to go well. I understand. No, you don't. This is the first time my business might become something that doesn't need to fit in your garage. There was the contradiction at the center of her. She wanted independence to arrive without the period in which she had to function independently. What exactly do you need from me? I asked. She seemed startled by the question. Exactly, I repeated. She took a breath. I need you to finish the main display wall. I need your truck Friday to move the base sections. I need help assembling it Saturday morning. I have hired 4 people for Sunday. I'm paying Renee to supervise breakdown. And after Saturday morning, you're done. No calls unless someone is in danger. That's dramatic. It's precise. She looked at the boots drying near the back door. What if the wall fails? Then Renee handles it. She doesn't know the bracing system. Teach her. I can't teach her what you know. Then simplify the system. That might change the design. Yes. Marin's eyes filled with angry tears. You make everything sound like a choice. Most things are. Easy for you to say. No, it's just new for both of us to admit. She unpacked the groceries without speaking. On Friday, we loaded the base sections into my truck. On Saturday, I helped assemble the main wall at the venue, a brick warehouse with high windows and a loading door as inconvenient as advertised. Marin moved through the space with a headset, a clipboard, and a calm authority she rarely showed at home. She directed hired workers, negotiated with the florist, and caught a measurement error before it became expensive. Watching her, I saw the capable woman hidden beneath all the emergencies. At noon, I tightened the final brace. Marin ran her hand along the wall's edge. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. You'll keep your phone on tomorrow? No. Her hand stopped. I'll check it twice. Noon and 6. What if I need you? Renee will be here. She looked across the warehouse at her crew. Then she nodded. All right. That evening, I packed my bag and set it beside the front door. Eli would arrive at 8 Monday morning. From the garage came the sound of wood striking concrete. Marin said very softly, "Oh no." I found Marin standing over a wooden seating chart. It was 6 feet tall, framed like an old window, with narrow shelves for place cards. One of the legs had split where it joined the frame. The whole structure lay face down across 2 moving blankets. What happened? I was moving it. By yourself? It isn't heavy. That wasn't my question. It caught on the freezer handle. I crouched beside the broken leg. The split ran diagonally through the lower joint. Somebody had repaired it before with 2 long screws driven too close to the edge. Did I fix this last time? I asked. No. Who did? Maren did not answer. You did. It held. Until it didn't. She knelt on the other side. Can you repair it? You need to replace the lower section. How long? With the glue set overnight, it'll be fine tomorrow. Relief moved across her face. I stayed crouched, but did not reach for a tool. You can cut a new leg from that poplar beside the workbench, I said. Use the old one as a pattern. The relief vanished. Dad, the table saw is already set. I don't use the table saw. You've used it with me, with you standing there. I'll stand there. I mean you run it. No. Her expression became still. You're serious. Yes. The wedding is tomorrow. I know. This isn't a philosophical exercise. No. It's a broken display, which you know how to fix, so do you. I know the general idea. That doesn't mean I can execute it safely. I'll show you each step. It will take twice as long. Probably. She got to her feet. You said you'd help with the Caldwell wedding. I helped. The event isn't over. My part is. You're really going to stand here and watch me struggle because of some rule you invented a month ago? I'm not going to watch. I'm going to teach you. I don't need a lesson. Then call Renee. Renee is at the venue. Call one of the workers you hired. They're not carpenters. Neither are you, officially. She paced toward the garage door and back. If this were for the playhouse, you would already have the saw running. If this were for the playhouse, Dolores would have called the person assigned to repair it. I'm assigning you. That is the problem. She laughed once, sharp and breathless. I cannot believe you. I can help you do it. I will not do it for you. What is the difference besides making it harder? You knowing how next time. There won't be a next time if tomorrow goes badly. That isn't true. You don't know that. No, I don't. Her eyes filled. The old response rose in me so fast it felt physical. I wanted to stand, touch her shoulder, pick up the broken leg, and make the fear leave her face. I knew the order of operations. Cut the poplar, transfer the holes, glue and clamp the joint. 20 minutes, not counting cleanup. Love, in our house, had become a race to make unpleasant feelings end. I walked to the workbench and picked up the old leg. First we marked the length, I said. Maren did not move. Come here, I'm calling Celia. Fine. Don't say it like that. Like what? Like I failed your test. There is no test. Everything is a test with you now. She called Celia. I heard only Maren's side. I need help with the seating chart. No, the big wooden one. It broke. He's here. Her eyes flicked toward me. No, he won't fix it. I did ask, because apparently I'm learning a valuable lesson. She listened. Never mind. She hung up. Is she coming? I asked. She said she'd finish what she was doing and call back. What is she doing? I don't know. Living the life she has outside my emergencies. The imitation was aimed well enough to sting. I set the old leg on the poplar and traced it with a pencil. You can be angry while we work, I said. I don't want to work with you. All right. I placed the pencil on the bench and went inside. For 10 minutes, the garage remained silent. Then the table saw started. I was out of my chair before I realized I had moved. I stopped in the kitchen doorway. The saw ran for 3 seconds and shut off. Maren appeared. You said you'd stand there. I thought you didn't want to work with me. I changed my mind. I put on my safety glasses. Her first cut was crooked because she pushed too fast. I showed her how to keep the board against the fence and let the blade do the work. The second cut was straight. She transferred the holes, clamped the pieces, and drilled one pilot hole at the wrong angle. Stop, I said. She released the trigger. What? Look where the bit will come out. She bent down. Oh, back it out. Start again from this side. You would have gotten it right the first time. I've gotten it wrong enough times to know what it looks like. That surprised a smile out of her. We worked for an hour. I held the frame steady while she fitted the new leg. When she reached for the glue, I told her how much. She used twice that amount anyway, and it squeezed out along the joint. Too much? She asked. Yes. Will it hold? Yes. Then I'm calling it generosity. She wiped the excess with a damp rag. At 10:30, the seating chart stood upright. The new leg was a shade lighter than the old wood, but Marin mixed paint until the colors nearly matched. She stepped back. It leans. The floor slopes. You always say that. The garage floor slopes. Will it lean at the venue? I don't know. Her mouth tightened. Put a level on it tomorrow. Carrie Shims. She wrote SHIMS on a strip of masking tape and stuck it to the frame. Thank you, she said. You did it. You helped. Yes, the distinction held. At 6 the next morning, I woke to voices in the kitchen. Celia stood at the counter drinking coffee while Marin packed extension cords into a plastic tub. You came, I said. Celia lifted her mug. I heard there was an educational emergency. Marin rolled her eyes. He made me use the table saw. He let you use the table saw? I supervised, I said, which means he stood close enough to reach the power switch. That still counts. Marin carried the tub toward the garage. Celia waited until she was out of earshot. She told me you refused to help. I refused to do it for her. I gathered that eventually. Are you helping today? I'm going to the venue for setup. I am not staying through breakdown. Did you tell her? Twice. She'll ask again. I'll answer again. Marin came back for another tub. You two can stop exchanging hostage negotiation advice. Celia took one handle. I'm carrying this to the van. That was my agreement. I know. Good. Together they loaded the tub. I made eggs for all three of us. Marin ate standing, checking messages between bites. The hired crew had arrived late. The florist had brought cream roses instead of white. The caterer wanted access to the loading door during the same hour Marin needed it. Each problem entered the kitchen and waited to be declared fatal. Marin handled them. She changed the crew's task order. She approved the cream roses after Celia held one against the table linen. She called the caterer and arranged a 30-minute loading window. No one died. No one called me Dad in a tone that meant pick up a wrench. Before leaving, Marin looked at the bag by the front door. You're packed. Yes. What time is Eli coming? 8 tomorrow. I'll be back before then. You don't need to be. I know. She said it deliberately. At noon, I checked my phone as promised. There were 2 messages from Marin. The first showed the repaired seating chart standing in the warehouse lobby. The lighter leg was hidden behind a white flower arrangement. The second read, "It doesn't lean." I replied with a thumbs up. At 6, I checked again. She had sent a photograph of the completed room. Gold arches rose behind the head table. The main wall stood beneath hundreds of lights. The seating chart was crowded with white cards, each name exactly placed. Looks good, I wrote. 3 dots appeared. Then, it is good. I smiled. Ruth called and invited me to dinner. She made meatloaf in her condominium kitchen, which was so clean it seemed designed to discourage food. We ate on her small balcony while traffic moved below. You're not at the wedding? She asked. I was not invited. You're always invited. You arrive holding a drill, not tonight. She raised her glass. To unemployment, temporary, don't sound too certain. I told her about the seating chart. Ruth listened without interrupting. You still stayed in the garage, she said. She wasn't comfortable with the saw. That seems reasonable. I made her do the work. How revolutionary. I'm not claiming sainthood. Good. The paperwork is exhausting. At 11, Marin texted that the event had gone well. At 12:30, she sent a picture of herself and Celia standing beneath one of the gold arches. Both looked tired. Marin was smiling. Celia was not quite smiling, but she had one arm around Marin's waist. Marin came home at 2 in the morning. I heard the van, then the back door. A box bumped against the wall. I went to the kitchen. She stood in the doorway with her shoes in one hand and a paper bag in the other. Her hair had come loose. Mascara shadowed the skin beneath her eyes. Why are you awake? She asked. Old men enjoy 2 a.m. The Caldwells gave me cake. She put the bag on the table and opened it. Inside were 2 slices wrapped in waxed paper. We ate wedding cake under the 4 minutes fast clock. The coordinator wants me to send a proposal for a restaurant opening, Marin said. That's good. It's in October. I should be back. I know. She looked at me. I'm not asking you to help. All right. You could offer. I waited. She laughed, and this time I did too. At 7:50, Eli's Subaru pulled up in front of the house. He did not honk. He got out and stood beside the car wearing sunglasses. though the morning was cloudy. He had Ruth's height and my habit of checking the tires whenever he approached a vehicle. Maren came onto the porch behind me. "You're early," she said. "10 minutes," Eli replied. "You used to be worse. I'm recovering." They looked at each other. 18 months of distance and years before that of irritation sat between them without introducing themselves. "The wedding went well," I said. Eli nodded. "Good." Maren crossed her arms. "You can come inside." "I thought you had breakdown." "Renee has it." Another silence. Eli took my bag. Maren looked at me. "You have your medication?" "In the side pocket." "Phone charger?" "Yes." "Shoulder brace?" "Yes." "Insurance card?" "I'm leaving the state, not civilization." "You say that now." She hugged me. At first it was a quick embrace. Then her grip tightened. 6 weeks is a long time, she said against my shoulder. "I know. What if something happens? Call the appropriate person." She pulled back, annoyed and frightened. "That sounds rehearsed." "It is." Eli put my bag in the Subaru. Maren glanced at him, then at me. "I'll move the inventory before the deadline," she said. "All right, I mean it. I believe you." That seemed to hurt more than doubt would have. I kissed her forehead and walked to the car. As Eli pulled away, I looked back. Maren stood alone beside my packed truck, one hand raised. For the first time since she had moved in, I left without making sure she had nothing left to ask me. Maren remained visible in the side mirror until we turned at the end of the street. Eli said nothing for the first 10 minutes. He drove with both hands on the wheel and the air conditioning set low enough to preserve meat. A travel mug sat between us. Beside it was a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon. "Did you eat?" he asked. "Yes." "Good." Another 10 minutes passed. "What's in the bag?" "Food," I gathered that. "Cinnamon rolls. Why didn't you offer me one?" "You said you ate. That doesn't answer the question." He handed me the bag without looking away from the road. The roll was still warm. I tore it in half and set one piece on a napkin near the cup holder. "For later?" Eli asked. "For you." "I already ate." "That doesn't answer the question." He smiled. We crossed into Kentucky before either of us mentioned the previous weekend. Eli waited until we had stopped for gas. He stood beside the pump, watching the numbers turn. How was the wedding? Successful? And the emergency? It became a seating chart. He looked at me. "It broke," I said. "Maren repaired it." "By herself?" I showed her. "So, not by herself." "She ran the saw." "That must have been unbearable for you." "It was crooked. I meant letting her do it. That too." He replaced the nozzle and tightened the gas cap. "Did she move her stuff?" "Not yet." "The deadline is while you're gone." "Yes." "What happens if you come home and it's still there?" "She says it won't be." "That isn't what I asked." "I don't know." He nodded. That nod had irritated me for years. Eli used it when he believed someone had answered badly, but did not want to spend the energy arguing. It could make a person feel dismissed with almost professional efficiency. "You do that on purpose," I said. "What?" The nod. I nodded. "You have several." "I didn't know." "That one means you think I'm avoiding something. Are you?" "Probably." He leaned against the Subaru. "I'm trying not to start this trip by fighting. Maybe that's how we got here." "By not fighting?" "By pretending not to." A truck rumbled past us into the parking lot. Eli folded his arms. "Okay," he said. "You want to fight?" "No." "Excellent opening." "I want to say I'm sorry without you deciding it's insufficient before I finish. I haven't decided anything." "You've nodded twice." His mouth twitched. I looked across the highway at a field running up toward a line of trees. "I should have come last weekend," I said. "The backdrop was real work, but I chose it. Maren didn't make me stay." Then I drove north, expecting credit for arriving late. Eli waited. "I've done that to you more than once." "More than once." "I know." "You always say you'll make it up later." "I know." "Then later becomes flexible because I don't scream." "That's fair." "It isn't fair. That's the point." I let that settle. "When you stopped inviting me," I said, "I told myself you preferred it." "I know." "How?" Mom told me. "Ruth needs another hobby. She has water damage greeting cards." Despite himself, Eli laughed. Then he looked at the pavement. "I did withdraw," he said. "Maren's right about that." "She told you?" "She didn't have to. She thinks you punish people by leaving. Sometimes I do." The admission surprised me. I wanted you to notice, he continued. Then when you didn't, I acted like I hadn't wanted you there anyway. It made me feel less pathetic. You aren't pathetic. I know that now. I noticed. Eventually, yes. The pump beside us beeped because another customer had left a receipt. Neither of us moved. I don't expect 6 weeks to fix everything, Eli said. Neither do I. I'm not coming down every weekend. I didn't ask you to. You have a way of not asking and then being disappointed. That is a family trait, from your side. Your mother once wanted me to replace an entire bathroom based on a sigh. She said the tile was ugly. She said nothing. She stood in the doorway and sighed. Was it ugly? Extremely. We got back in the car. The road narrowed as we entered North Carolina. Forested slopes rose around us, deep green under low clouds. Eli drove through the curves without slowing enough for my comfort. You're taking that too fast. I'm under the limit. The limit is aspirational. You taught me to drive. I made mistakes. You're still making them from the passenger seat. We reached the folk school in the late afternoon. The campus sat in a valley surrounded by ridges, its buildings scattered among trees and gravel paths. Some were white clapboard with wide porches. Others were rough stone or weathered wood. The performance hall had a sagging side entrance and windows patched with plywood. I could see at least 5 things wrong before Eli parked. You're smiling, he said. I'm assessing. You're smiling while assessing. Beverly met us outside the office. She was a compact woman in her 60s with silver hair tied at the base of her neck and a pencil tucked behind one ear. Daniel, she said, holding out both hands. I'm glad the United States mail finally succeeded. Eli glanced at me. It succeeded eventually, I said. Beverly showed us my cabin, a plain wooden building with 2 bedrooms and a shared sitting room. My cabin mate, Curtis Bell, had already arrived. He was a retired restaurant manager from Nashville who wore pressed khakis to a place whose packing list included work gloves. I brought one good shirt, Curtis explained. I refused to meet strangers looking like I escaped a shed. Eli stayed for orientation and dinner. We ate beans, cornbread, roasted vegetables, and peach cobbler at long tables with the other participants. Everyone had a reason for being there. A former nurse named Leanne wanted to restore the farmhouse she had inherited from an aunt. A quiet man named Vaughn built theater sets in Virginia. Curtis had no project at all. He had seen the program in a magazine and decided he was tired of managing other people's appetites. That sentence followed me back to the cabin. Eli left the next morning after breakfast. At the Subaru, he checked my bag, my phone charger, and the shoulder brace Marin had reminded me to pack. You two would be excellent co-parents, I said. Don't make it weird. You're both bossy. You raised us. He closed the hatch. I'll be back September 7th. I'll be ready. He studied me. Call if you need something. I will. I mean it. So do I. We hugged. Eli was not a natural hugger. He held on longer than I expected. Then he drove away, and I stood beside the gravel road with nowhere I was required to be except where I had chosen. The first week hurt. Our lead instructor, Amos Keene, was 70 and built like a fence post. He spoke softly, carried no unnecessary tools, and could identify rot by tapping wood with the handle of a screwdriver. He divided us into teams to repair the performance hall's side entrance. Beneath the steps, years of trapped moisture had softened 2 joists. I saw the damage and immediately began explaining how I would brace the landing. Amos listened. When I finished, he said, "That's one way. What's another? Ask Leanne." She crawled under there. Leanne had found an older drain problem I missed. I did not enjoy being wrong. I enjoyed even less that everyone survived it. By Wednesday, my shoulder ached badly enough that I wore the brace. No one treated it as failure. Curtis handed me lighter boards without comment. In return, I showed him how to keep a chisel edge straight, help move back and forth without becoming debt. I checked my phone too often. Marin sent photographs of storage units, then screenshots of prices, then a message saying the Grandview manager had confirmed the commitment became month to month after 6 months. Told you, she wrote. Celia was right, I replied. 3 dots appeared and disappeared. Finally, she sent a single rude hand gesture. I laughed aloud in the dining hall. At the end of the second week, Marin called during our agreed Sunday evening time. The shared workspace has another opening, she said. It's smaller, but the loading dock is better. Can you afford it? If I give up the garage here, you don't pay for the garage here. I mean, if I stop buying inventory for a while, that seems possible. I'd have to sell 2 arches. I said nothing. You hate the arches? She added. I have complicated feelings about them. I thought you'd say sell all 6. They're your arches. She sighed. Celia thinks I should take it. What do you think? I think I'd have room to work. Then that matters. And if the business slows down, I'll be stuck with the rent. Yes. You could sound more reassuring. I'm trying not to decide for you. I didn't ask you to decide, I know. She was quiet. I did, sort of, she said. Yes. I hate this. What? Everyone making me hear myself. I smiled. She told me the dining room was nearly clear. The garage was harder. Renee had agreed to buy 1 arch, and the shared workspace owner might let Maren sell another to an adjoining florist. Celia helped me photograph everything, she said. How are things with her? We had dinner. That isn't what I asked. It's what I'm answering. I recognized the technique. After we hung up, I walked to the performance hall. Evening settled blue between the ridges. The repaired side entrance stood square beneath its roof, the drainage corrected, the new joists hidden where no audience would ever see them. Amos sat on the steps sharpening a chisel. You have people at home? He asked. Yes. Missing you? I think so. You missing them? Yes. He nodded toward the building. Still here, though. Still here. The next morning, Beverly brought mail to breakfast. There was an envelope from Eli. Inside was a photograph of his porch with one loose railing section removed. On the back he had written, I waited for instructions. It was awful. A second envelope was from Maren. It contained the blue calendar page from the garage. Every square with my name had been crossed out. Across the bottom, she had written, signed the workspace lease, sold 1 arch. Nobody died. I turned the page over. In smaller writing, she had added, I miss you anyway. I kept the calendar page in the drawer beside my bed. It was not proof that Maren had changed. It was not a contract, confession, or peace treaty. It was a piece of paper she had once used to schedule my time without asking, and now it showed empty squares. That seemed worth keeping. The work grew harder as we moved from the performance hall entrance to 2 of the older cabins. One had settled unevenly on stone piers. The other had a porch roof that looked straight until rain ran toward the building instead of away from it. Amos made us measure everything twice and trust nothing that had been added after 1970. Why 1970? Curtis asked. Because that's when people discovered caulk, Amos said. We removed 3 generations of repairs from one window. Beneath aluminum flashing, vinyl trim, and enough sealant to waterproof a boat, the original sill remained mostly sound. Curtis looked offended. We spent 2 hours uncovering wood that didn't need replacing. Useful discovery, Amos said. Feels like being charged to learn somebody has no disease. That's a useful discovery, too. At night, my body hurt in places that had been quiet for years. I iced my shoulder, stretched, and went to bed before 10. By the 4th week, I could carry lumber without thinking about whether Maren might be calling. She usually texted first. Her van broke down on a Tuesday. I learned about it Thursday. The message said, alternator died, had it towed, rented a cargo van, did not call you because you were several hundred miles away, and, tragically, not an alternator. I called anyway. You handled it, I said. I swore in front of the tow truck driver. I'm sure he recovered. The repair is $800. That hurts. I had emergency savings. You have emergency savings? I have less now. She sounded proud and furious. Do you need anything? I asked. The old question came out automatically. No. You hesitated. I was deciding whether to say something sarcastic. Thank you for your restraint. I need you to tell me $800 is criminal. It's high. Criminal, Dad. Deeply suspicious. Thank you. A week later, she told me she and Celia had attended their first counseling appointment. How did it go? Terribly. Are you going back? Yes. Then perhaps not terribly. We spent 45 minutes discussing the difference between a request and a demand. That seems relevant. I knew you'd say that. What did Celia say? That she wants me to move into my own place. I stopped walking. I had been following a gravel path toward the dining hall. Not back with her? No? I'm sorry. Are you? Yes. I can hear the part of you that thinks it's healthy. The parts aren't always coordinated. She says if we reconcile, she wants it to be because we choose each other, not because I need somewhere to put my shoes. That sounds like Celia. She also says I use logistics to create emotional obligations. That also sounds like Celia. I told her I learned it from you. Fair. You're supposed to argue? Would it help? No. A breeze moved through the trees above me. What are you going to do? I asked. I found a furnished sublet near the workspace. The woman who rented it took a 6-month job in Denver. Can you afford both? Barely. That wasn't a criticism. I know. I'm practicing not hearing one. The dining hall bell rang in the distance. You didn't ask me to move out, she said. No, I know that. Do you want me to ask you to stay? Her silence answered before she did. I want you to want me there. I do. Then why does it feel like you're relieved? Because I want you in my life. I don't want you living inside every empty part of it. She made a small sound. Was that another shower sentence? She asked. No, it sounded practiced. I'm becoming articulate in old age. I liked you better when you fixed things. I know. She laughed, but her voice broke around it. We said goodnight without solving anything. On the final week, the participants finished the cabin porches. Leanne installed the last section of flashing. Curtis repaired a stair stringer Amos had originally assigned to me, and did it well enough that I had no correction to offer. At the closing dinner, Beverly gave each of us a small photograph of the buildings, as they had looked before the work began. The useful parts are mostly hidden, she said. That's true of restoration and people, unfortunately. Amos looked pained. Beverly has been saving that sentence for 6 weeks, since March. It should have stayed saved. Everyone laughed. I glanced at the performance hall through the dining room windows. Audiences would use the side entrance without knowing Leanne had found the drain. Curtis had cut the new stringer, or I had nearly replaced a sill that did not need replacing. Invisible work was not the problem. The problem was believing invisibility made the work mine forever. Eli arrived the next morning at 8:03. You're late, I said when he stepped out of the Subaru. Road construction, an excuse, a reason. Your distinction is weakening. He took my bag and inspected the boots. Those new? 6 weeks old. They look terrible. Thank you. Beverly hugged me goodbye. Curtis made me promise to call if I ever came through Nashville. Amos shook my hand and told me not to carry a cast-iron sink under any circumstances. How did he know? Eli asked after we got into the car. The shoulder told him. We did not drive home. Eli took us north to his house, a red brick place on a quiet street outside Cincinnati. The porch was worse than the photographs suggested. One railing section had been removed, 2 floorboards were soft, and a corner post had shifted enough to pull the roof trim apart. I thought we could finish in a week, Eli said. We can stabilize it in a week. That sounds more expensive. It's free advice, most expensive kind. We worked side by side for 6 days. On the first, I began assigning tasks as if Eli were a volunteer who had wandered into my shop. He listened until I told him how to hold a level. I know how a level works, he said. You were holding it upside down. It doesn't have an upside down. The writing does. The bubble doesn't read. I took a breath. What do you want to do? I asked. Replace the damaged boards before we brace the post. I'd brace first. I know. Why? Because if I let you brace it, you'll continue until the porch is finished, and then tell everybody we worked together. I put down the drill. That is unfair. Is it? Yes. He waited. Not entirely, I admitted. We braced the post together. The porch gave us something to look at when conversation became too direct. We could discuss joists, screws, rain, or the previous owner's inexplicable devotion to indoor nails. Beneath those topics, the older conversation continued. On the 3rd afternoon, Eli asked, why was it always her? I knew what he meant. We were sitting on the porch steps eating sandwiches. The new railing cast square shadows across the boards. It wasn't always. It was enough. Yes. He picked at the paper around his sandwich. Marin knew how to need me, I said. You didn't. I needed you. You didn't show it. I shouldn't have had to set something on fire. No. He looked toward the street. After your mother and I divorced, I didn't know what to do with myself, I continued. Marin called. She had work problems, relationship problems, car problems. I could solve some of them. It felt like being a father instead of a man whose wife had decided living alone was preferable. Mom didn't decide that casually. I know. You say that like she abandoned you. I said it like I felt abandoned. They aren't always the same thing. He nodded, the thoughtful version this time. I was angry at both of you, he said. Then I was angry at Maren because she still got access. You could have called. I did. The answer was quiet. He was right. He had called. I remembered rushed conversations, invitations I treated as flexible, pauses I failed to ask about. I'm sorry, I said. I know. Is that enough? No. The honesty hurt less than I expected. What would be enough? Time, probably. I have some, unless Maren needs a gazebo. She sold an arch. That must have caused a recession. I laughed. On the last evening, we sat on the repaired porch with 2 beers. The corner post stood square. We had replaced the worst boards and rebuilt the railing. The roof trim still needed paint. It isn't finished, Eli said. No. You can come back. Yes. He looked at me. That was an invitation. I know. You didn't immediately check your calendar. I'm growing. He raised his bottle. The next morning, we drove south. My phone filled with messages as we neared Columbus. Ruth wanted to know when I would arrive. Dolores had sent photographs of the completed playhouse set, including one window Howard had apparently installed upside down. Beverly thanked me for 6 weeks of work. Maren had sent only one message. Don't panic when you see the house. That is not a reassuring sentence, Eli said. You're reading my phone? You held it in front of me. It's still rude. He drove to the curb and stopped behind Maren's van. The house looked the same from outside. Inside, it echoed. The gold arches were gone. The fake hedge had disappeared. The dining table stood bare except for a neat stack of mail. My garage held my truck, my workbench, and labeled cans of screws. Pale rectangles on the walls showed where Maren's shelves had been. Her bedroom door was open. The bed had been stripped. The closet was empty except for the Ohio State sweatshirt hanging from one hook. Eli stood behind me. She moved out, he said. On the kitchen table, beside my mail, sat the cracked plate from the morning after the letter. Maren had glued it. The repair showed as a thin gold line from the rim to the center. Beneath it was a note. Dad, inventory is at the workspace. I'm at the sublet. The plate can't go in the dishwasher, which is apparently another thing I know now. Dinner here at 7 if you want. I kept my key because you didn't ask for it back. If you want it, ask. M. Eli read over my shoulder. Are you going? He asked. I looked around the quiet house. Yes. At 7? That's generally when 7 happens. He smiled. At 6:59, a key turned in the front door. Maren entered carrying 2 paper grocery bags. She stopped when she saw Eli in the kitchen. You stayed. He lives here, Eli said. He doesn't. I meant Dad. I know what you meant. She set the bags on the counter. Eli leaned against the sink. The two of them looked at each other with the wary familiarity of people who knew exactly where to place a knife and were trying not to reach for one. I invited Dad to dinner, Maren said. He mentioned that. Did he mention it was a dinner for 2? No. I can leave, Eli said. Maren glanced at me. I said, or we can eat. I didn't bring enough. One bag contained pasta, bread, tomatoes, 2 onions, a wedge of Parmesan, a bottle of wine, and enough ground sausage to feed a theater crew. Eli looked inside. We'll be brave, he said. Maren took the food out more loudly than necessary. She opened cabinets, found the cutting board, and reached for the knife block without asking. Her body remembered the kitchen even if she no longer lived in it. Eli carried my bag to the bedroom. You didn't have to do that, Maren said. I know. She glanced at him. Did Dad teach everybody that sentence? No. Apparently you did. I expected a fight. Instead, Maren cut an onion in half and said, fair. Eli returned and washed his hands. He asked what he could do. Maren gave him tomatoes. She gave me bread, which required no machinery and little judgment. We cooked around one another. The arrangement was awkward but functional. Eli cut the tomatoes too large. Maren criticized them, then used them without recutting. I burned one edge of the bread because I was listening instead of watching the oven. While the sauce simmered, Maren poured wine. You look different, she said to me. I'm tanner, you're thinner. The food was healthy. You hate healthy food. I ate peach cobbler 3 times. That's not 6 weeks of calories. Eli sat at the table. He lifted wood for recreation. I lifted wood for historical preservation. You also became emotionally attached to a window. It had original glass. Maren smiled into her wine. For a little while, North Carolina was safe territory. I told him about Curtis wearing pressed khakis, Leanne finding the drainage problem, and Amos refusing to trust any repair made after 1970. Eli told Marin about the porch. Marin showed him a photograph of the Caldwell seating chart, positioning her phone so the repaired leg was visible. I cut that, she said. With supervision, Eli replied. I still have all my fingers. Dad must have been medicated. He stood close enough to turn off the saw. I looked between them. They had not forgiven one another. They were simply discussing something that did not require forgiveness. Dinner was ready by 8. We carried plates to the table, and Marin automatically set the cracked one at my place. The gold line caught the light. What did you use? I asked. Food-safe epoxy and metallic powder. You researched it. I wasn't going to poison you for symbolism. Thoughtful. It can't go in the microwave either. I'll write a manual. She served the pasta. Eli looked around the dining room. It's weird without the forest. The fake hedge lives at the workspace, Marin said. Renee bought one arch. The florist next door bought another. I kept 4. Civilization survives, I said. Barely. How's the space? Small. Expensive. Mine. She looked down at her plate. The first morning, I got there at 6 because I kept thinking I'd left something here. Then I realized I could arrange everything without worrying about your truck or the freezer or whether the votives were invading the crossword table. They were. They absolutely were. Did you move into the sublet? Eli asked. Yes. How is it? It smells like somebody else's candles. Better than somebody else's fake hedge. She looked at him. How's your porch? Structurally sound and cosmetically unfinished. So, like you. Eli's eyebrows rose. I held my breath. Then he laughed. Marin's relief appeared before her smile did. We finished dinner. When the plates were mostly empty, she took the key from her pocket and placed it beside my glass. I didn't know whether you wanted this. You wrote that. I know. I'm asking now. Do you want to keep it? It isn't my house. That wasn't the question. Eli looked at his plate, giving us a privacy that the room did not provide. Marin touched the key with one finger. I want to know I can come here. You can? Without making an appointment? You can call. That sounds like an appointment. It's a phone call. What if you don't answer? Then, unless there's smoke coming from a window, you wait. Her mouth tightened. That's not how it used to be. No, you used to say I never had to call. You used to live here before that. I looked at the key. Keep it, I said, for actual emergencies. Who decides whether they're actual? The fire department. That is annoyingly specific. I've had time to practice. She closed her hand around the key. Eli cleared his throat. I should go. You can stay, I said. I know. Marin stood. Take pasta. I have food. Take it anyway. He accepted a container because refusing would have turned dinner into another hour. At the front door, he hugged me. Then he looked at Marin. She folded her arms, not defensively this time, more as if she needed somewhere to put them. I was angry at you, Eli said. She gave him a flat look. Thank you for the breaking news. I'm still angry, better. But I blamed you for things Dad chose. Marin glanced at me. That sounds like an apology addressed to the wrong person. It might be. She considered him. I hid your letter, she said. I know. Dad told you? He said you had it. I wasn't going to give it to him until after the wedding. I assumed. You always assume the worst. You usually provide strong material. Her arms tightened. Eli sighed. This is why I don't try. No, this is why you leave and then congratulate yourself for being above it. There it was, the old blade, immediately found. Eli put the pasta container on the entry table. You're right, he said. Marin lost her next sentence. I leave, he continued. Then I tell myself, I'm setting a boundary when sometimes I just want people to feel me gone. She stared at him. I learned that this month, he added. I didn't enjoy it. The tension in Marin's face shifted. I'm sorry I hid the letter, she said. Thank you. I still think you were trying to recruit him. I was. Against me? Against his couch. You could have called me. Neither had. Eli picked up the pasta. I'll come see the workspace, he said. That sounds threatening. It is. When? Not tonight. He left before either of them could turn the offer into a contract. Marin and I washed dishes together. She picked up the cracked plate and held it above the sink. Not the dishwasher, I said. I know. You wrote the warning. I know, Dad. She washed it by hand. When the kitchen was clean, we returned to the table. The key was back in her pocket. Only the neat stack of mail remained between us. I moved out because I was angry, she said. I assumed. I wanted you to come home and see how well I could leave. That occurred to me, too. Then I signed the sublet and realized I'd have to stay gone after making the point. How is that going? Some nights it's great. Some nights I sit on the bed and wonder why I'm paying $1,800 to miss 2 people from separate addresses. Celia? She nodded. She hasn't asked me home. You've been going to counseling. That doesn't obligate her. No, I hate how reasonable everybody has become. It could be temporary. She looked toward the dark hallway. I did need to move, she said. I just wish I'd figured it out before you made me. I didn't make you. I know. I'm practicing saying choices out loud. I'm proud of you. Her face crumpled so quickly that I almost missed it. She looked down, wiping beneath one eye. I don't want you to be proud of me for living in an apartment, she said. I'm proud because it's difficult, and you did it anyway. She nodded. Then she stood and took her purse. I have an early delivery. Do you need help? The question escaped before I could stop it. Maren looked at me. No, she said, but thank you for asking, instead of appearing in the parking lot with straps. I'm growing. She kissed my cheek and left. The house was quiet after the door closed. Not abandoned, quiet. I set the repaired plate in the cabinet with the others. The empty dining room bothered me for several weeks. I kept expecting a gold arch to appear when I turned on the light. Instead, Ruth brought over a plant and placed it in the corner without asking. I told her it was too large. She said I could complain when I learned its name. Maren visited on Sundays when her schedule allowed. Sometimes Celia came. Sometimes she did not. Their counseling continued. They remained married and lived apart, which Maren described as expensive ambiguity. Celia called it time without a deadline. Eli visited the workspace in October and sent me a photograph of himself beneath the fake hedge. Maren had added the caption, "Brother survives forest." He came to Columbus twice before winter. The second time, he repaired the loose pantry hinge I had already repaired. He used the wrong screws. I said nothing until the door sagged, then handed him the correct ones. He accused me of waiting for the failure. I admitted I had enjoyed it slightly. The envelope from the folk school arrived on a cold Thursday in November, but not at my house. Maren brought it over that evening. She stood inside the kitchen holding it with both hands. This got mixed into my forwarded mail, she said. My name was typed across the front. The envelope was unopened. I checked, she added, twice. I took it from her. Thank you. She sat at the table while I slit the top. Inside was a letter from Beverly. The school planned another 6-week restoration session in the spring. Amos wanted an additional volunteer instructor, someone comfortable with both scenic construction and old buildings. Beverly asked if I would consider returning. Maren watched my face. What is it? They want me back. For another program? As an instructor. Her smile arrived, but it did not stay uncomplicated. How long? 6 weeks. She looked toward the window. I waited for the questions. What dates? What about the house? What about the restaurant opening she had booked for April? What about my shoulder? Instead, she asked, Do you want to go? Yes, then you should. I set the letter on the table. There's an event in April, she said. I looked at her. I'm telling you, not scheduling you. Good. I might ask for advice on the freestanding wall. You can ask. And you can say no. Yes, that remains unpleasant. The following Sunday, Maren hosted dinner at the workspace. The room had high ceilings, concrete floors, and shelves built from the unit she once assembled backward in my garage. 4 gold arches hung from hooks along one wall. The fake hedge stood near the freight door. A long table occupied the center, half workspace and half dining room. Ruth arrived with the oversized plant's smaller cousin. Eli brought beer. Celia brought bread and set it beside Maren without anyone assigning meaning to where she stood. During dinner, I told them I had accepted the folk school invitation. Ruth said she hoped they had reinforced the sinks. Eli asked whether I needed a driver. I told him I could manage, but I would like him to visit. Maren wrote the dates on her own calendar. Halfway through dessert, one of the display panels near the wall began to lean. The base had shifted on the concrete floor. Maren, I said. I see it. I started to stand. She pointed her fork at me. Sit. She crossed the room, found a wrench, and tightened the base. The panel remained slightly crooked. You need a shim, I said. I know. She slid one beneath the foot and checked the level. Perfect. When she returned to the table, she glanced at the folk school dates. "When do you leave?" she asked. I told her. She nodded and passed me the cake. Across the room, the display stood on its own,